Hey guys, Robert here, and I have a special guest with me, LianaK. Thank you for coming on. It is a great pleasure to have you aboard. Why not introduce yourself first to those who might not know you?
I could be really snarky right now. Go, hi, I'm Leanna. But yeah, I'm Leanna K. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a game person. I do so many things. It's hard to do it quickly, but I'm a personality, I guess. Oh God, VJ on a service called New Music Nation up in Canada. You can check out a video. It actually got released just today, where I tour the Marvel Avengers Station, which is the
Oh,
costumes exhibit in Toronto, Canada. There's apparently one in Vegas and a few other places as well. But I also do stuff on gaming and pop culture, and I am a big He-Man fan. Like
mm-hmm.
big.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
you guys can't see it, but the Dragon Walker's behind me.
Oh, the Dragon
Yeah,
Walker.
and I feel like kind of like a cheap for loving the 2002 Skeletor chariot. That's my favorite part of the 2002 line. Skeletor's battle chariot with like the two big like demonic rams on the front. That
Yeah.
toy's the shit. I don't care what anybody says. But yeah, I'm a Masters of the Universe fan from all the way back. I mean, I'm old enough to
Yep.
have watched the show when it was originally on TV and all that stuff. And of course, the drama surrounding
Yeah.
the cartoon.
Yeah.
You
That's why
know,
you're here.
that's why I'm here. And it's like I just to start us off, it makes me very, very sad because I
Mm-hmm.
think there's been a lot of miscommunication, and I think a lot of people have jumped to conclusions about other people's motivations, and they're getting angry at assumed motivations instead of it's not about
Yeah.
people's opinions anymore. It's about
Mm-mm.
the perceived reasons why people have these opinions, and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
come on,
Exactly. I've been having this problem for a while too. Was just this. I've never been in the comic community, but I've been around it, watching all that stuff. I've always had this
what was
problem
that?
since day one.
Was that Comicsgate?
Yeah,
I
the community.
I stayed out of that whole thing.
Oh,
I
I know.
stayed, yeah.
I had a foot in it because I had people who I knew in it, but I always had a problem. And I knew the moment things started going off the rails, I saw where it was going. People don't like to hear me about when I tell them. If I tell them, you guys, this was exactly where it's going to go. You guys are going to become so full of yourselves. You guys are going to become so hated because of your letting the trolls dominate that eventually it's going to then start influencing things. And sure enough, it spread. And
Okay.
now you're at,
In fairness to the people that did get involved
oh,
in
yeah.
any of those things, any of the gates, in
Yep.
good faith, unfortunately, there are certain narratives about nerds, and
Mm-hmm.
there are black holes. And the minute even a loud minority of people play to that stereotype, that's what gets covered. Right.
Yeah.
I do believe that in that case, not all, obviously there were some legitimately
Mm-hmm.
bad actors and all these things, but
Mm-hmm.
trolls, like legitimate trolls who just want to mess stuff up, get involved. And at that point, there's no conversation to be had. And I believe that's the same with this
Mm-hmm.
He-Man thing.
Definitely.
One of the sure signs of trolling is you notice an uptick in it when the business day starts in Russia, around 9 a.m. Russia time. All of a sudden, you start getting bombarded by this nonsense. And it's like, oh, hi, Troll Farm. It's
Exactly.
not a normal time. It's like 3 p.m. my time or
Yeah, there's
something
always a
like that.
reason.
Nobody decides, oh, it's 3 p.m. Let's start sending out
No.
nasty grams. That's not organic. That's not real. But there are I do believe there are some things that we can actually communicate and actually get clarity on.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who's been on like both sides, I've met Kevin Smith 3 times. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
he recognizes me because every time I was in a different cosplay. But you get to talk to him. You get a sense of who he is as a
Oh
person, because
yeah.
he does wear his heart on his sleeve. It's
Mm-hmm.
not hard to get a read on this dude. He is like the 8-year-old in the 50-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I suspect that he is very hurt by some of the things that people
Oh yeah. I
say
felt that
about
way.
him.
Yeah.
Creators do get hurt when
Mm-hmm.
people think you've done a bad job. It doesn't matter how much you can defend it. you do this to entertain, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
like it when people don't like your stuff. It's part of the business. You have to get used to it. But I just think that things went off the rails and didn't stick to what could be proven. We got into this speculation territory
Mm-hmm.
that is not helpful.
It's not, especially when you have people who are just so set in what. Here's what I call them. Okay, they use the phrase SJWs. SJWs. I came up with this one: culture war shock troopers, where they care
Yeah.
about just the culture war, and that's it. They go in, they're not thinking about coming back, and they don't care who's in their way. That they feel is not, that's in their way. Get out of my way. I'm going right through you. And I think that's what they've become. It's not even a matter about the entertainment anymore. It's the culture war, and anything that they convince themselves is about the entertainment, but it's not. I think if and something was legitimately good, if He-Man was the best it was, they would have ignored it then. They would have said much of another word. They would have been like, "Oh, it ended up being good. Move on. Let's find something else to be outraged about." Because that's what they do. If it's something that's good, one or two videos, that's about it. If it's something they have issue with, how many videos a day?
Well, okay, enragement is engagement on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's another element to it. I honestly think that people spend a lot of time in these communities, right? I don't want to dismiss everybody
All right.
who
Me neither.
hated the show or really, really upset. I think Kevin Smith lied. I don't want to dismiss everybody as bad faith.
Right. Me
Because
neither.
I've talked to people. I've actually had some people accuse me of lying, and then they eventually back off,
Mm-hmm.
recognize I'm not. But they spend a lot of time in these internet communities. They get a sense of identity from these internet communities, and much like the mainstream that pushes narratives we don't like, they get invested in a narrative because that narrative
Mm-hmm.
becomes part of their identity. And then
Yep.
when that narrative starts to be possibly the result of a grifter that led everyone astray, it's
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing. It's hard to admit. People end up in denial, and some stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens. And
Yep.
that's human. I just try to, I try to take some hits. I think I might have a bit of, heroism poisoning in this regard, but I know I can take it. I know I don't
Mm-hmm.
really care. So like I care about the stuff. I don't care what people
All
say
right. Right.
about me. But I do use this as exercises because, if I can stop 5 people from making the same mistakes next time, hey, that's 5 people,
Oh yeah.
right?
Definitely.
It may
Exactly.
mean 50 people hate my guts, but I
Right.
don't really care about that. I care about those 5 people who don't get unnecessarily upset next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like
I
it's
definitely
a
do.
net win for me because the 50 people who want to get upset and that brightens their day for whatever reason, whatever. There's no
Yeah.
persuading them, but people are legitimately getting wrecked by this thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's
It's
not
like
necessary.
it's a
Prince Adam
cartoon.
Prince Adam is not dead. He's not
Right.
dead. He was never dead. If you look at the final frames he's in, the wound is to the side.
Exactly.
It was a fake out, and the thing is and this is one of the things that really caught me unawares
Mm-hmm.
because as a child of the 80s, I was actually born in the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, um everybody knows that when that happens in a cartoon of this pedigree, he's not really dead. It's just to
No.
ramp up the drama. He's going to come
Mm-hmm.
back, right? Like the never ending
Exactly.
story, everybody came back and everybody was destroyed, right? And then they came back again. Um, and so one of the things that really caught me off guard is people got really mad at me for making a joke and comparing it to 2 other things that happened around the same time in history.
Mm-hmm.
It was The Empire Strikes Back and The Wrath of Khan. And both of those movies killed off like major franchise characters and killed off, right? Meaning didn't kill them off because Prince Adam isn't dead either. And
Exactly.
people lost their shit at the idea that people did not know between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi whether Han Solo was coming back. Some
Oh
people thought
sure.
he died because Harrison Ford wanted out. He
Exactly.
wanted to be killed. George Lucas talked him down to the
Mm-hmm.
carbonite, right? But he wanted out. He had to be persuaded, and nobody knew for quite a
Exactly.
while whether he was coming back. And people experience those movies in retrospect, one, two, three. There isn't that 2 years of speculation.
Mm-hmm.
And, I jokingly thought, man, people would have lost their minds if things were then as they were now, because the cliffhanger wasn't normal.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was one of those cliffhangers. It was a cliffhanger of a middle act, even.
Right, right, right. Like Empire's all middle and it's all darkest before the dawn, right? Star
Exactly.
Trek 2 was different because the first Star Trek movie was really panned by
Exactly.
by critics, and so they really had to up their game, and they sort of threw everything at the wall. But again, Nimoy wanted out,
And
and
yeah,
then
and
he had a
while
change of heart.
doing production, he felt like there is new life. Beforehand,
Right,
after the first one, he's like, "Nah, kill me off. There's nothing here." But he's like, "I'm feeling it.
right,
I haven't felt it in years. I'm
right,
feeling it."
right. And so it's funny because people were like, "No, Han Solo didn't die." I'm like, Spock didn't die. Prince Adam didn't die. That's the whole point. Like, if you are
Exactly.
offended by this comparison,
Yeah. Optimus didn't die.
we'll take Optimus did die, and then he
Yeah.
didn't, but he
Oh,
didn't like that
I,
one.
I saw
That
your
one,
tweet.
man.
I saw the
Yep.
tweet you got. You shared. You talked about how someone had the gall to say, "How would you feel if Optimus got killed off and replaced with a second stringer?"
And like, how
What?
many times did that happen? Like, it was both Rodimus and Ultra Magnus in different shows, right?
Exactly.
Like, and I mentioned Ultra Magnus, and he said that doesn't count, and he went on. I'm like,
What?
I wasn't even gonna mention Rodimus Prime because that one legitimately people did kind of freak out about.
Oh yeah.
Right. A lot of people did not like Rodimus Prime, but the point was of that example of all of
Mm-hmm.
them used as a hypothetical. And I'm not gonna go the that person's not a real fan
Oh
thing,
no, no, no,
right? They
no.
they
I don't
love
do
this
that.
stuff, but this just shows how much emotion is clouding people's ability to keep things in perspective and reason and come up with appropriate examples. And I really do think that a big part of this whole thing is a disconnect
Mm-hmm.
between the language of creators who we navel gaze about this stuff. We've had too much frigging school. We don't talk the way normal people talk.
Right.
And sometimes we don't code switch when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking to the public. We get too cerebral, we get too thematic, we get too big picture. And so we end up with stuff like, Kevin Smith saying this show is literally all about He-Man. And that's true.
Right.
It's about the construction of He-Man, it's about the lies that coincide with the Adam He-Man dichotomy, what it means, the good and the bad. The show is a deconstruction of
Exactly.
He-Man. Now, I'm with the people who are a little tired of
Oh
deconstructions.
hell yeah. So am
I'm
I.
I'm getting kind of tired of deconstructions. Like that Black Widow movie, man. I was like, I don't want a deconstruction of the way she jumps. Spider-Man, man. Spider-Man has the most ridiculous pose in comics, but
Yep.
nobody deconstructs that,
No.
right? Like, don't deconstruct Stan Lee. Don't deconstruct Jack Kirby. Don't deconstruct Steve Ditko. They resist that. You are doing it wrong if you think too hard about this stuff, right? But in terms of being a deconstruction, I actually thought it was a good one. And I thought that like my interpretation of it was that Tila is doing a heel turn. Tila is wrong. We're supposed to believe Tila is being wrong and
Mm-hmm.
stupid. We're not
Exactly.
supposed to agree with her position.
Oh yeah.
And she's wrong and she's kind of being stupid, but in an understandable, very human way.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, a lot of people do not feel the same way. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying there's a legitimate interpretation that isn't they ruined He-Man, despite me thinking Sarah Michelle Gellar was probably not the best voice choice.
Very true. And I would
Yeah.
say this. I say this. I think they played it a little too close to straight for a deconstruction. Like a little too much where you could see it being more of a serious thing and not a deconstruction.
I agree with you that it was a lot at once, right? They were
Mm-hmm.
trying to do a straight up adventure story
Mm-hmm.
because Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to do a deconstruction of the character because story for people who are in their late 30s and early 40s now, more the early to late 40s, right? But also they wanted the cornball dad joke flavor of the original as well. And they had some legitimately like really clunker jokes that people seemed to not, for some people, the tonal shifts didn't work. They couldn't follow along. And that's a subjective thing. If it didn't work for somebody, great. I liked them, but a lot of people, this is the problem with creating a show that is stated to be the Masters of the Universe you remember, not the Masters of the Universe that was, right? Because for some people, Masters of the Universe was all about He-Man. They had the He-Man toy. They wanted to be He-Man. For people like me, I liked the freak show second stringer characters like Merman and Stinkor and Snout Spout and Beastman and Mossman, you know, all that stuff. You can't really please both, because if you do a He-Man centric show, you lose all the time for all those freak show characters, right? Mm-hmm. And they haven't even touched the Snake Men at all. Yet. That's like even though
they're 2002 series, they had a chance to finally touch them because they ended the cartoon before they had a chance.
But that's the thing. You've got that dichotomy within the 80s, the 80s Masters of the Universe fans. But then you've got the people who jumped on in 2002. And there is, I mean, Evil Lyn in the Netflix show is very much the Evil Lyn of 2002, not the Evil Lyn of 1980.
Oh, yeah.
Right, 83. Definitely. And certain other elements are very much 2002, not 1980. But again, like, it's funny because the 2002 cartoon was the Skeletor show. Mm-hmm. It was heavily dominated by Skeletor. Yeah, score. The Keldor show, right. That's where we got into that. And people didn't complain that He-Man was sidelined there. Right.
Yeah, no, Skeletor was the next one. You know, it's the next one.
But I sat down and watched. I was all stoked. Like, I sat down and watched with my cousin's kids. And as I'm watching, I'm like, I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to say. And I said, so what'd you think? And they looked at me and they were hesitant because they didn't want to be rude. And they said, Skeletor's great, but He-Man sucks. And that, I'm like, they're right.
They're
are. Right.
I hate to say that about the 2002 series. I felt it was closer to the series Bible, but at the same time, no, it was like, at what cost? I mean, heck, even the DC Comics started focusing more on Skeletor as we got to Eternity War.
Because, I mean, let's face it, Skeletor's cool. Like, the design of that character was cool. And I do think Skeletor is a nerd. Right,
that voice of it already tells you.
But everything, he's super smart, but he always loses. Right, like, I totally understand why people who follow this as adults identify with Skeletor, and that's a real gravitational pull. You know, the same way that, you know, you move over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you've got Loki, who's smarter and works harder, and, you know, never gets his dad's approval, and so we all kind of like him. We have to remind ourselves that he's a mass murderer and you know, at times kind of Hitler-esque. Sorry for the Godwin's Law, but they went there. Yeah. But you identify with these characters because you feel like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
you really do.
I really think that was part of the thing, is there isn't the same, there's this concept called the U-shaped box. Mm-hmm. An ensemble cast like this, which character do you feel represents you in the show? And when you have all these characters, everybody's got somebody, right? And for most people, Teela wasn't the U-shaped box. Teela was the cool friend who always had the back of the U-shaped box character, right? And so for Teela to do that heel turn and to get inside Teela's head and have her be mad at one of the U-shaped box characters being Prince Adam, the guy that everybody dismisses as a simp, but who's secretly awesome, another, you know, fan point of connection, there's a betrayal there. It kind of breaks the covenant that people had with the affirmation fantasy as opposed to the power fantasy. It was a risk. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people didn't. Again, there is no reason to bombard people with nasty grams over a difference of opinion of a subjective, did you like it or didn't you like it?
Oh, geez, I saw some people commenting, it's not subjective, it's opinion. It's like, opinions are such, what? You
I
guys know,
was I was told I hate men because I like the Masters of the Universe cartoon by more than one person.
I was told you must adore Last Jedi because you liked it. I'm like, no, I did not like Last Jedi. I'm
Okay,
one of
can
those.
I derail on Last Jedi for a
Go
minute?
ahead, go right ahead, go right ahead.
Okay. Here's what drives me crazy about Last Jedi. Mark Hamill delivers a masterclass in performance under duress
Yes,
in that
definitely.
show. He was in the movie. He was a consummate professional. We
Mhm.
know he disagreed fundamentally with every element of the way, like the whole Jake Skywalker thing.
Yep.
But holy crap, did he turn in a great
Oh yeah, you can't
performance?
deny that. You
And we
can't
can't
deny that.
we can't talk about that because if you say anything even remotely complimentary about any element of the Last Jedi, you get hate bombed. And it's like, but guys, he did a legitimately good job. Like
Exactly, he
I
did.
I couldn't take my eyes off him every moment he was on the screen. And when he did the little dirt off the shoulder thing
Exactly.
at
I
the,
was just
like
thinking,
that's badass, right?
it is. It really is badass. I mean, yeah, the whole like now, but you see some of the other looks on his face. You can tell the subtle contempt he's having throughout all those scenes, but
He's
it's hidden under Luke's bitterness.
and it was a cliche to make Luke into the Yoda to bump Rey into the Luke part. Like, holy shit, there
Yeah.
are other Jedi guys. But
You,
okay, that moment where Yoda comes back as a Force ghost and it's him and Luke, like, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. Like, that existed in that movie too, right? And we're not even allowed to say that there were some legitimately wonderful
oh
moments
yeah.
in that film because the narrative is just so it ruined Star Wars. Again, though, I mean, I am part of the original class
Yep.
of Empire Strikes Back. My mom got us Star Wars on one of those old top loading VHS rental machines. You know, you rented it from the video store and you
Oh
took it
yeah. Oh,
home.
I remember those. I remember
And
those.
and I remember one day she brought one of these machines home, and you know, my mom and my dad were like, "We think you're old enough for this now," at the age of 4. And it was Star Wars
Oh.
and Empire because Empire Strikes Back was coming up. They wanted to see it, and so I'm like, "Oh, Star Wars was okay, but Yoda, man, Yoda was. I was this little 5-year-old kid with the. This is when my mother, I think, thinks she made a grave error." Because I thought it was so cool that the Yoda toy had a snake.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was about R2D2 and I was about Yoda. And I love the Ewoks because I was about 6
Yep.
when
Yep.
Jedi came out. And there's probably a lot of people out there going, "You're too young. You were too young. There's no way." No, I mean, I remember having that Yoda toy and I got a marble stuck in the bottom of R2D2 and could not get him out. And there's a marble in the poor R2D2,
Got
like
a marble right up his.
crammed a marble where the sun don't shine, right? But I mean, these are things some people out there are probably going, "What are marbles?" You know,
Oh.
like, but yeah, I
Remember the
mean that.
Ducktales using them.
Yeah, I mean, I had like Yoda and R2D2 and the Oodles. I don't know if you remember Oodles.
Oodle. Oh, that rings a bell.
Those
That's ringing bells.
weird, those weird naked babies that smelled like baby powder.
I vaguely remember
They
those.
were
I
like
don't remember.
one of the weirdest friggin' toys in the 80s. Google Oodles, but we had a bunch of those. And then I had the Gem Dolls and some
Oh,
My Little Ponies.
oh,
And
yep.
so yeah, Yoda and R2D2 were like the generals. And the Gem Dolls were like, they had these stands, right? And then these instruments. So they were hovercrafts, right? And so we had this used Millennium Falcon and then Yoko and R2D2 and then the Gem Dolls because they were giants, right? They were much bigger. And then we had like the Oodles on the battlefield, like the friggin' Titans from Attack on Titan, like just advancing on the My Little Ponies. And it was this weird mashup,
Oh,
like
I see.
war scene in my parents' basement. And of course, none of this was canon, right?
Obviously.
I was a warped little kid, but we didn't have the money to get everything in every toy line.
Oh,
So we had
yeah.
to use our imagination. And to me, all of these revival properties are trying to capture that. But, you know, what is good nostalgia is as fraught a topic as what is good fan fiction, because let's face it, it's the same thing.
Yeah, but there's eventually always going to be a
Yeah.
point where where real news stories, if it keeps on going, it's going to become fan fiction once the moment you bring a fan in. Like Jeff Johns doing the Green Lantern with the Multi-Lantern Corps. Fan fiction potatoes you can get.
Okay,
but
that was
like, you know, why did anyone think of this before?
That was the beginning of the end of me dropping DC Comics, though.
Oh, really?
Because I started having X-Men flashbacks.
Oh, no.
I was an old, okay, I understand the 90s were kind of a dark time because of the speculator market, but I went through 2 waves of X-Men where they just created a ton of characters trying to get the next Wolverine, and then they killed them in some mass mutant genocide.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Mutant Massacre, I believe.
And so when Blackest Night was happening, I'm like, no way. They're going to get, they're going to keep Larfleeze, and they're going to keep Atrocitus and his cat, and they're just going to slaughter everybody else. And
thankfully they didn't.
Yeah, but I thought that, then they went White Lantern, and it all got friggin' weird, and then there was Rebirth, and everything got very, very strange, and I was like,
oh, I don't blame you.
It's also, I thought the movies were going to have a hope in hell of being good, and I'm finding I'm enjoying the Marvel movies a lot more when I don't go back and read, because instead of comparing what I liked in the comics to what they put on screen, I can just kind of take what they're doing.
Oh yeah,
right.
Definitely.
It's not intended to be checking boxes of accuracy. It's not a test, right? It's an interpretation.
Not get me started. That's a new thing people are doing these days when they want to complain about the MCU. For when they find out it's not as woke as they feared it was, they start complaining, saying it's not close to comic accurate. It's like, when did you ever complain about comic accuracy? Like WandaVision. Oh, it didn't have Mephisto at the end. So,
well, we don't know, right? I mean, the problem, I know we're derailing huge. Apologies to the audience.
That's perfectly fine. I do it all the time.
This is in theme, though, right? The thing that drives me crazy about the Disney Plus shows, Falcon and Winter Soldier less. Falcon and Winter Soldier had a different challenge, but WandaVision is just all like prequel novel to the Doctor Strange movie, right? It's all set up. And because of that, it's Wanda, all caps, Vision, tiny little letters, right? Vision is such a schmuck in that show until the very end.
I'm glad he's alive.
Yeah, wouldn't it be interesting if they had introduced that Ship of Theseus concept as the art in the fake office place that he worked at? You introduce that at the beginning, and then keep going back to that as a metaphor. So at the end, that Vision and Vision discussion actually makes sense and came from somewhere, as opposed to boom right at the end, like
right. Oh, I agree. This could use a lot better writing, but I'm just saying when people. Yep, sorry.
Sorry. Again, in fairness, I don't want to sound like a bitter critic.
Oh, I know.
All these things, there are so many cooks and there are so many masters to serve. Definitely. It is very hard to get anything made. This is why you hear, I think this is an incredibly pompous statement, but when people say at least they got their vision made, at least they got their vision on screen, not Vision comic book character, Vision like their original thing.
Right.
There's this thing in entertainment we call the shitifier. Okay. You come in with a great script, and then the talent gets it, and the network gets it. And, back in the days when there were syndication, the affiliates get it. And every level, every pass shitifies it more and more and more. And so you see the quirky, almost kind of British series that WandaVision started as, and then they slapped the typical Disney empowerment ending. Yeah. The last episode of WandaVision, I actually started singing Let It Go during the end. When her and Agatha are going and it's everything, I started let it go, let it go. I'm like, fuck off. And
I don't blame you. Especially then they later reveal in interviews saying, oh, we didn't want to have like a male. It's like, why do you have to say that? You're saying, I tell you this, here's my argument when I see this with the marketing. They start coming out. Kevin Feige, he's not an idiot. He knows that a lot of these people who are in it for the progressivism and all that stuff are hoping for that. And they're the ones paying attention. And then I'm pretty sure when he makes those statements, he knows it's not going to be the dominant part of the product.
I don't think that's it. I
You don't?
don't think that's it at all.
All right.
Hollywood doesn't care about woke.
No,
When
I'm not saying that.
I
I'm just saying he's trying to get people butts in the seat, as many butts in the seat as possible. So he knows the
um
only ones paying attention are those people. Everyone else, normal people, they're not paying attention. They're
they
not
are
going to decide one way or the
they're
other.
quite happy to ride the outrage. A mistake Disney made with the non-feature animation, meaning
Mm-hmm.
like core Pixar brand, Marvel brand. They made a mistake thinking it was so male focused. I found this out with my ongoing coverage of Disney Infinity because
Mm-hmm.
I remember the PR guy, when I covered Disney Infinity, I'm like, there aren't enough female characters. Well, this is what our focus testing said. I said there are not enough female characters. There aren't. You've got too many men. And sure enough, what was the thing? I'm like, where's the quirky characters? Like everything's a brand. Where's Stitch? You got to do
Mm-hmm.
Stitch. Stitch has crossover appeal,
Oh,
and
yeah,
of
big time.
course. Of course, they got hammered for not having enough female characters, and then they did a fan vote, and what won? Stitch. And so
Yep.
when I
People
saw the
love
guy that
Stitch.
I'll give the Disney guy, I'll give the Disney marketing credit though. He sent me one because
Mm-hmm.
he remembered that. He sent me one for my birthday when it came out. And I was like, all right, this is a marketing guy admitting they're wrong. They get in these tunnels. They get in these echo chambers, and
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood has no soul. In California, Southern California does not understand anything outside of Southern
Oh, no.
California.
No, they don't.
And so here's like the Southern California collective trying to do suburban New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the correct ending to WandaVision would have been everything coming crashing down, like real consequences for what happened. I mean, her saying, I don't need you to tell me who I am. Honey, Agatha just dragged you by your hair, taking you through who you were for an entire episode. How can you possibly say that? Because
Yeah.
they think that what women want, TM, is this cheesy female empowerment thing, right? They made the exact same mistake with Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Loki goes from a really interesting Doctor Who kind of thing to the fucking Cave of Wonders in Aladdin with a blonde.
Very true.
It was. I'm like, what's going on? That's what I said. Like when that cloud's going up, I'm like, Arabian Nights. Like, oh my god, Disney, get a new idea,
Yeah.
right? But it was just like Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't do that because you notice Power Broker, and then the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character,
Mm-hmm.
they just get snuck in, right?
Yeah, they did. They definitely did.
And so you
Now, we
walk
already know
away.
that Dreyfus was already going to be in
Yes.
Black Widow, so I think that helped.
Yeah, well, those aired out of order as well, right? Like that. I think we were supposed to be, hey, who's that? Still worked,
exactly.
right?
Oh, it still worked, yeah.
But we go from Power Broker. We could kind of take on our own terms, and she's complicated.
Yeah.
And then the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character, everybody friggin' loved because it's one scene and boom, it's the way they introduced Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
Right? He has this one big scene-stealing scene, but he's not in the way of the character we came to see.
No.
And that's Hollywood is still not on board the female empowerment train. They're not. And that's why
They're
feel
they're tippy-toeing.
it's not even that.
Oh.
They needed female inclusion forced down their throats. So they think everybody else needs female inclusion forced down their throats.
Jeez.
That's
You're
what
right.
it is.
You're
That's
right.
what it is. I have been in so many meetings where they pitch the show and then there's the girlfriend. Okay, what does she do? Well, she's the girlfriend.
Oh,
Why do I
God,
care about the girlfriend?
There's a reason those tropes people no longer like anymore when they're just the girlfriend.
But they just don't know. I mean, look at the Black Widow movie.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what to do with her, so they gave her a family. Does a longtime comics reader give a shit about Natasha Romanoff's family? No. And we don't really, we're not, I was very jarred that it was a whole thing on reproductive freedom. It's like,
yeah.
all right. I actually thought in the comics, Natasha was like, well, one less thing to worry about. More like the way Yelena kind of took it. Like, I'm going to use this as a psych tactic, and that again, look, Yelena's great. We all like her,
Mm-hmm.
but we wanted a Natasha movie, right? Getting back
Exactly.
to He-Man, I think that's probably a similar reaction. However, we're talking about a character that was always there.
Exactly.
And
And to be fair about Tila, she has this big backstory that they did kind of at least lead up a bit more with her connection to the
I'm
sorceress.
I'm really amazed that more people forgot about that.
Yeah, she's the
Like,
daughter of the sorceress, and
Tila Na is the sorceress's real
exactly.
name. She
Oh, which
like
I love that. I love that in the comic, which like, wait, you named me after her? It's like,
and didn't tell her, right?
yeah,
Like that's the thing.
she
Everybody's like,
invited her
"Oh,
to the
oh,
funeral.
this is so woke. They're gonna make her the new He-Man." No,
No,
that is
that
not.
is the moment that whole stupid thing came out. It's like, oh, she's gonna be She-Man. It's like, no, she's going to realize her power
Yeah.
of being the sorceress's daughter, and they hint off to it already when she's dealing with us, Scareglow.
Scareglow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which that was great. Although I have
Also,
to wonder how much magic she had left.
okay, you know what? I had to go back and watch that whole scene because the first time I watched it, I was like, this is a brilliant way to get Battle Armor He-Man into this show. Like it's the battle armor, and battle armor He-Man was one of my favorite toys. I'm like, wow, okay, because it's like plated instead of like the leather strapping. I'm like, this is freaking cool, and it's Scareglow and the Fright Zone and the Slime Pit all in one. This is so cool. What do you mean everybody's mad at this? I don't understand.
Come on, and you had pretty much Scareglow is treated like he's Mephisto of their hell.
Well, pretty much. The only thing I was sort of bummed out at, and I understand that this probably would have led to confusion, is the Fright Zone playset came with this giant rubber snake puppet. Yeah. And I thought that was like the coolest shit when I was a kid. The Fright Zone was one of my favorite playsets. And,
the Fright Zone, yeah.
And it was that big blue monster instead that Evil Lyn and Orko were fighting. And I was bummed it wasn't a snake, but I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. They haven't introduced the Snake Men yet.
Right.
So, you know.
I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to.
It depends if they do another season. It is a big layer of complexity, right? Because those were the rulers of Snake Mountain. That's why it's called Snake Mountain before Skeletor.
Although the funny thing is, you know what the He-Man Thundercats revealed instead as an alternative? That was one of the ancient spirits of evil based off of its corpse. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea.
That's not canon, though.
No,
I mean, okay, this is another point, though. Like, this goes into the whole Andra race swap thing.
Oh, jeez. She only appeared in the Star Comics, which itself was never fully canon with the cartoon.
Do I have it? I have a book. One of the old He-Man books, you know, the golden books thing.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Here it is. Here it is. There's no art standardization in these books. And so there's actually a panel where Tila's snake, you know, she had the like orange snake.
Yep. They brought into the comic as well when she became the sorceress of.
But in this book, I'll show you on camera. You guys can't see it on the podcast, but it's purple in this book. There was no standardization early on. Of course, Man-at-Arms doesn't have a mustache in this book either.
Which I remember that from the Secret of the Sword when we had the flashback.
There it is. I don't know if you can see it. Look, it's purple with green eyes.
I see that.
And like, there's no standardization in these comics. And there was no, you get on Tila's costume. Tila never wore the stupid snake thing.
Nope.
Because her collar's higher, everything like that. When you start getting into redesigns, you have to give some forgiveness for the fact that there was no standardization. Andra never appeared in the cartoon proper. Neither did Stinkor back in the day.
You're right. In fact, he only appeared twice: the Star comic and an Injustice.
That's right.
Yep, versus Master Universe.
And like, Injustice is not canon. Yeah, and so it's like.
It's canon to the Thundercats crossover, but that's it.
Yeah, but it's like, it's possible Kevin Smith didn't even know
about
that character.
I think Rob David probably threw out the name and they just used it. Now, King Grayskull, but here's the other thing people complain about. He was a later addition for the 2000s.
Yes, he was.
Lines, and it's like, he never was in the 80s one. So, and that I might offend some people saying this. the way he was treated here in both the comic prequel and in the Revelation, it's a coat of paint. He's just black. That's it. Nothing else.
Okay, he's Dennis Haysbert though.
True.
And I mean, on Netflix, any godlike character must be played by Dennis Haysbert. He's Lucifer's father too. He's just God of the Netflix universe. He's not a black guy. He's Dennis Haysbert.
Yep.
But again, in the same scene, I was killing myself laughing about Hero and Wondar.
Oh yeah.
Like Wondar, man, the Wonder Bread mail away character. Like that was a paint variant. That's deep lore. I mean, Hero's a bit better known because they did that Four Horsemen figure. Later on, the costume's so dumb.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was delightful for me.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that whole thing with the if you go, you cannot come back, that's another super 80s thing that has gotten lost in translation.
Yeah.
Right? The problem, my theory, this is a bit of a hot take, but the problem is a lot of Joss Whedon's Buffy and other work has been sort of shitifying recycles of J. Michael Straczynski's scripts from things like the old He-Man cartoon.
And He-Man. He worked on He-Man, She-Ra. He co-created She-Ra. So.
Right. And so the recycling has dropped some of the earlier function of tropes like that. And so people are misremembering how these tropes work through Joss Whedon, who you have to put a coat of shithead bastard paint on everything he did, right? Yeah. In the 80s, it was, we're going to set up a big bad, you cannot break this rule, only to have the heroes break the rule at the end. It's don't cross the streams.
Exactly.
Right? So I was really surprised that anybody, believed that rule's not going to get broken. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just up in the drama. Like,
always.
You saw my video where I called like my predictions. I know I will be wrong, but my prediction, Man-at-Arms and Sorceress are going to end up dying and end up in Pre-Eternia together, so they can happily ever after. Teela's going to be the new Sorceress. Andra's going to become the Man-at-Arms. He-Man, Adam's going to be He-Man. He may become King of Eternia.
I'll wait for you to finish because I have something to say in that regard.
Yeah, but it's, to me, Man-at-Arms is the Joel from The Last of Us 2 of this show, right? Like, he's the guy that, to me, because he's already done the big heroic self-sacrifice thing, and, you know, he's in a thing with Sorceress where their roles prevent them from being together, and he's had a thing for Sorceress from, like, the 80s.
I used to think he was Teela's actual father.
He's adoptive,
Yep, I know, but I want to say quickly, if there's one person I think was done dirty, was King Randor in this. I did not like, now, banishing, fine. I accept it. He's upset. Threatening execution.
Okay, but the fan joke from back in the day is King Randor is so dumb he forgets to put on pants in the morning.
I've seen that.
Because Randor has no pants. Like the action figure has no pants, and so the fanish joke is that's what I thought. A lot of fan canon worked its way into the show. The close relationship Beastman has with Evelyn. That started as a fan thing, right? Randor being dumb as a bag of hammers. That started as a fan thing, right? So they are doing some fan service on this show. And I think the problem is that people don't know that that's fan service. Yeah. So they're just like, oh, why'd they make Randor so dumb? Because that was an in-joke. I was on the like He-Man.org message boards back in the day, and pretty much the only clean jokes were those. The rest of them were about Fisto and Ram Man. You can imagine how those were. And they must have tied Kevin Smith to a chair and taped his mouth shut to not do one of those jokes, right? Because that's I am being totally unserious here, but when people started going on about the gay coding in the new cartoon, and it's gay coding, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Fisto's in it for a frame. Ram Man's not in it at all. My gay coding quotient is like, it's dropped from the original. So Tila slings her arm around Andra once,
So
like, come
what?
here,
How many
kid.
other women do that?
There actually is a gay couple in one frame, but I'm like, maybe they'll be in the back half. Like maybe Fisto and Ram Man will be in the back half, but that was sort of a golden opportunity to put a gay couple in a Netflix series, and everyone would have been like, okay, fair. But I wonder if Kevin Smith pulled a punch there because they primed him with "We want your Green Arrow run," not.
Well, he still did
ass
dirty
to
stuff
mouth.
in the Green Arrow. Remember?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a trip to Sherwood.
Yeah, like I'm really surprised they didn't do that, because I think that maybe a bit more. You can only do so much in 5 episodes, and I think that one of
That's the other thing.
Releasing it, I get why Netflix is doing it. They want to stretch out those subs. Same reason Disney Plus always releases like a 6 to 10 episode series in the middle of the month, right? They want to get you for 2 months of subscriptions. But, you know, I think that only releasing half, again, not realizing how weakened the world has become, and not realizing how people have processed those tropes post things like Buffy. They don't realize that, no, like when he did that stuff, he assholed them up. So people are taking it of, well, if this happened in Buffy, it would be really, really bad, as opposed to, you know, no, in the 80s, nobody took this seriously. Everybody knew they were coming back, right? Except for old Bob in the black hole. So sad.
Oh, yeah. One other thing about with the gay coding, unfortunately, you have stuff like the Legend of Korra and everything, and people just keep bringing that up. I'm like, okay, first of all, in the case of Legend of Korra, even I felt there was someone who was Korra and Asami by book 3. And so I wasn't surprised. I was more surprised that they showed it at the very end. But at the same time, I wasn't against it.
Let me make sure I have this right, because people have thrown that at me too. That wasn't actually in the show, right?
At the very end, they go to the spirit portal and they hold hands and they look at each other lovingly. That was as far as they were able to go. But the creators did confirm afterwards, yes, they are a couple now.
Okay, but that isn't the BBC Sherlock, which I completely 100% agree was gay baiting. Like, I will give everybody that show, that was some Watson and Holmes gay baiting, and everybody knew they were never going to go there. But I want more gay representation in media. I was pissed off that they had, you know, Loki do a line about, oh, I've been with some princess, blah, blah, blah. And then he fucking girl chases for the entire fucking show. Like, come on. No, that doesn't count. It isn't say you're gay and do nothing about it, right? Or even say you're bisexual and do nothing about it. Like, until Winter Soldier plants one on him, I don't fucking care.
I agree.
That was a joke. That was a joke. See, this is hyperbole. I have to say joke now.
I was smiling. Like, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, because the problem is, right, you get these things and everybody goes crazy about gay coding, and then Anthony Mackie gets dogpiled on Twitter for saying he thinks there need to be more shows about male friendship without it being seen as gay. I agree with him 100%.
That Pixar movie, good
Luca?
Lord. Yeah. Oh, God, don't get me started on how
that grossed me out because they're kids.
Exactly.
That's disgusting.
Yep.
Like
I said, the stuff with Korra and Asami in Legend of Korra, that was a case where you kind of got hints that maybe you're like, are they going to go there? Are they? Maybe not. But it's more like by the time they meet up and they're looking at each other, even by the comics, they're still figuring things out. Like, are we, aren't we?
But here's the thing. The media has changed again, right? I know I'm jumping all over the place in references, but you read a lot of comics, obviously, by the way you're talking. So, like, in Watchmen, Watchmen ends on a quantum ending, right? Rorschach's book gets dropped into the newspaper office, right? Nobody knows what happens to it. That was intended to end there. Now, you know, the Watchmen, I like the HBO Watchmen series for what it was. It's fan fiction. So
just
they
like
did Right. And people freaked out about that too. But people did not like what happened to Rorschach's manifesto. You're not supposed to like what happened to
Oh
Rorschach's
yeah,
manifesto. But
you're not.
the thing about quantum endings, like the Watchmen comic, like the Legend of Korra, is they're left deliberately vague. So if
Mm-hmm.
people want them to be a couple in Legend of Korra, they can have that. If people want them to be just friends who are very close friends, they can have that. They're
Mm-hmm.
good good art, good media shouldn't spoon feed everything to the
Exactly.
audience. There needs to be some room for some, lack of a better term, interactivity, like that
Oh yeah.
parasocial relationship with the characters,
Exactly.
right?
There's been so many times where I've heard creators who've said, "I leave it open for the fan fiction because I don't need to fill it out. The fans will come up with something better."
Exactly.
I don't remember who said it. I do not remember who said that, but I do remember someone saying that.
It's funny, in my boss fight web series, I play all the characters.
Yep.
And
Yep. I've seen them.
after the last episode um aired, where there's a character called the Social Justice Warrior, and he's a
Yep.
trans
Yep.
man, and then Princess Sparkle Muffin, who's the fairy tale princess, the Gracie Allen
Yep.
fairy tale princess. But people started shipping them, and they actually came up with the ship named Justice Muffin. And I'm like, and it was all done in fun, right? There isn't like a deep fan community or anything like that. But I'm like, they're shipping a character I played with another character I played. And I had this moment of, I need a grown up and I need a doll to show me where this comment touched me. Joke again. But then I went, I'm being stupid. This means that people forgot I was playing
Yeah.
I was playing all the characters. That's fucking awesome. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna take the win, right?
Yep.
Creators, and I will. I don't want to be too hard on Kevin Smith because I think he's been beaten up enough. But
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Smith has never known when to stop talking.
Oh
He's a
yeah. Agreed.
fanboy in that way. He comes by it honestly. It comes with the territory with him, but he really should have said less leading up.
Oh, I
When
agree. I think he was pushed. Here's the thing. I compare it to the James Mangold stuff, where the stuff has been going on so much on social media. Hollywood's probably heard about this so much that you're finally trying to get creators who are wanting to take a stand against people who are spreading misinformation, like in Mangold saying it was the solo writer when it was him and his usual writer who are doing it. But then they take it to the nth degree where they feel we got to be, the soldier pushing back when it's like, no, you don't. Just make the correction and then stand on it. Let it stand on its own. Don't be like pushing back on everyone, calling them living in their basements.
well, but that's the bravado, right? We try to hide the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually realized it's better. It's better. It's more useful going forward if you're actually honest with how you feel. You don't come out swinging if you're actually just covering up the fact that it really, really stung. I was openly laughing at the people taking it too far because I actually found it hilarious. That was legitimate emotion on my part. But when other things have really stung me, I have admitted it. And I think that if you want fans to take you at your word, you have to be honest even when you're vulnerable. And again, we're talking about a guy who's an 8-year-old in a 50-year-old's body, and that's all his worst qualities and all his, maybe we can't expect that. Right. But, I think it is instructive for other creators when this happens, right? Because I know other creators, people freak out and they're just like, oh, that's weird. I mean, my issue has nothing to do with people's opinions. My issue is all about how people express opinions.
Exactly.
And it's not because of me. People have mischaracterized this element of me a lot. It's that I know a bunch of, like, they're not big name, but they're people online. They're people with enough of a profile, but they're not independently wealthy or anything like that. And they have been hit by the cancel mob. And it profoundly rocked their mental health. And people think that just because you're earning money by interneting, that you inherently come to the table with the skills to be able to handle it seeming like the entire world hates you
Yeah.
for an extended period of time. And it took me, I think it took me 4 or 5 serious like cancellations, for lack of a better term, before I kind of hit the point where, meh, this has happened before,
Right.
like, but
Exactly.
some people never recover. And I know some people who did lose loved ones to this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and they were made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the creator of Night in the Woods,
Mm-hmm.
who
Oh
took his own
yeah.
life.
Yep. I remember that.
Um, these things, and you never know. It seems like it's just noise until it's not noise, and we shouldn't be blaming the victim here. These things are intense. They're intense for everybody who experiences it. Look at Kelly Marie Tran.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Look at Naomi Osaka. Hers wasn't a Twitter dog pile. Hers was just the media,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And we need to start seeing people as people and not
Exactly.
just effigies you can hit with flaming sticks because
Yeah.
you don't like something. And that, to me, is the big takeaway here. People claim to worship Prince Adam and He-Man so much that that's why they're so angry that
And
this is
yet
this
they
fun.
don't follow his point. Is
They don't
point
follow
here.
his example.
They don't.
There is a disconnect there that logically, if we use a critical thinking approach, that is fair to question. And by
Mm-hmm.
question, I don't mean you're not a real fan, you're
No.
lying.
No.
No, it's just let's unpack this for a minute, right?
Exactly.
You claim to worship this character. This was a fundamental part of your childhood. It made you who you were. That's
Mm-hmm.
the working theory, right? So
Yep.
why aren't you emulating his example? Because let's face it, Prince Adam, everybody thinks he's a simp schmuck, right? Like, and he's not.
He's not. He is definitely not. He's more than that.
He's not the aggressor. Skeletor's the aggressor. Skeletor, the one who started it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yep.
And so people are like, yeah, but you posted this thing and that was an attack. I said, no, I was posting my opinion. You jumped into my mentions with a ton of aggression. That's, Duncan and Tila and many, Ram Man sitting around minding their own business and boom, Merman and Beastman attack, like people, if you don't agree with someone's opinion, you don't have to respond. You don't have to attack them.
And I don't. And I try not to.
I never do. And people are like, you're being very aggressive. It's like, you came into my mentions, called me a liar, and expected absolutely no challenge to that.
Exactly.
Is that reasonable? And unfortunately, we live in an age.
Yep.
Let's face it. That is punching up theory.
Exactly.
The thing people claim to not believe in, but people do all the time. They think it's fair game to beat on people who are more successful or more popular than them or whatever, but that is punching up. Exactly. Punching up is not real. Punching up is punching.
Exactly. It's like with me. I grew up with Superman. Superman is what I base myself off of, and I actually followed that belief to the point where, yep.
My wedding ring is Superman. Yeah. Yep. I love Superman.
His belief of, I do not throw the first blow, but I will end the fight to my best of my ability if need be.
And Superman and Lois, good show.
Yes. Probably, my brother believe in that one is because Jeff Johns has more of a hand in it than Greg Berlanti.
His Stargirl is good too. I just started watching that.
I just wish he didn't get thrown. Unfortunately, all the stuff that's been thrown his way, like the stuff, from.
He fucked up Wonder Woman. He fucked up Wonder Woman. I will say he fucked up Wonder Woman. But Stargirl, Superman, and Lois, maybe TV is just his format.
I think it is. Yeah. I mean, Green Lantern. But I will say this though, I did like Superman better in the Whedon cut compared to the Snyder cut.
Sure.
Because he was closer to the animated series Superman, and it's like, that's what we wanted, not
Tyler, what's his name? Tyler Hoechner? The guy from Superman and Lois? I'm sorry.
Yep. I forget his name, but yeah.
He's my Superman. Chris Reeve was my Superman before this. He's my Superman. Henry Cavill is my Witcher. He's amazing as Geralt.
That's fair.
But Superman and Lois, Superman, best Superman. Just because he's allowed to do more. He didn't have very much to do.
So much more to do. Yeah. But Stargirl, it's like it's giving the fans what they want, but making changes when need be, or not even make changes. Bring in versions of characters that other people wouldn't sought to touch.
Well,
Like
all that stuff was canon though. Like they
exactly,
actually were like the modern Wildcat, and like
exactly,
it was pretty amazing how much they kept.
exactly.
I'm
That's
a
what I love about
Justice
it.
I'm a Justice Society fan.
Exactly.
So it's good to see that. And the girl they got to play, what's her name? Brett Bessinger.
I think so.
Yeah,
Again,
she's
I'm not
quite
good with
good.
names.
I'm very surprised they kept the bare midriff.
Oh yeah,
I was
but
sure they were gonna censor that out. And okay, it's like a 2-inch strip, right? You don't see
right.
her belly button, but still they kept the bare midriff. I'm impressed.
Oh,
And
I am too.
Luke Wilson is so good as Stripesy.
Oh yeah,
He's so
definitely.
good.
But tell me that I keep mistaken for Owen sometimes, not
Not,
always.
not now we can have a DC Marvel crossover, right?
Yeah, the two
We
brothers are
like
on one side of the
them
other.
just having dinner at the family, right? Like Morbius and Stripesy just getting
Exactly.
together. Like
Exactly. But
I no joke, I want a Marvel sidekick show. I
oh
want
yeah,
Darcy, Jimmy Woo, uh, Mobius, she's a superhero now, the lady from Captain Marvel,
mm-hmm.
Monica Rambeau, but
Yep,
just get all those really cool, and Ned from Spider-Man.
yep.
And just get them all together and do
Even
an
for a short,
Agents
just
of
a short.
Shield. Yeah, do an Agents of Shield style show with all those sidekick characters. It would be so fun. Give them the relationships, give them the romances. Let those supporting characters get their moments, because they're some of the most lovable, relatable characters in those movies.
Oh,
Right? They
definitely,
they
they
they bring
are.
it. They're the kids that befriend Bumblebee in
Yep,
Transformers, right?
yep.
And they're not making enough of those characters, because those shows would be a lot cheaper to do too, right?
Oh yeah, they would. I mean, look, and yeah, I had my train on, I just lost it. But yeah, now I will also say this though, when it comes to with Stargirl, for example, yeah, you had a chance where I'm pretty sure Jeff Johns told add some more diversity, so he's like, okay, pick these, and I'll just use these characters instead. Then, whereas Greg Berlanti, who can I change to fit my? It's like,
Well, I mean, Jeff Johns is very close to Stargirl because she's based on his
of his
sister
sister.
who passed,
Yep,
right?
yep,
Yeah, but I mean, all that was canon essentially,
exactly.
right?
But,
Like the new characters.
But yeah, but exactly. But then you hear the stuff about Superman and Lois, how we wanted to make Mom and Pop black. It's like, and yet they complain about that, and yet we had a great reveal of Steel that I didn't see coming.
You
John Henry
didn't?
Irons. Not
See,
initially.
I
I
love
thought
John Henry
I actually.
Irons.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
But I thought one after Shaq, there was no way, and
Okay.
two,
Fair enough.
I also thought that it was an alternate universe Lex. I actually thought it was just one where he happened to be black when you have that freedom.
That was an interesting fake out, right? Because everybody's like, oh, they race
Oh,
swap Lex Luthor. That it's like, oh, okay,
yeah.
this is
And
cool. I mean,
and yet
okay,
this writer was complaining about not having on promise. Like, what, you weren't patient enough? You didn't want to wait until then?
it's interesting because Lana Lang is basically Smallville Lana Lang in that that isn't comics accurate. I mean,
Right.
I love, what's her name, Emilia Shikri, the actress who plays her. I think she's really good, but Lana Lang's a redhead in the comics, but that went out with Smallville, so it's like there's sort of we're defining sort of new canons, and in a sense, all right, fine. I
Yep.
really do believe that we need space for these characters.
Yep.
But I think that these companies should be spending more time creating new characters that are that particular communities, like Black Panther.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when I did the thing at the Avengers station, they had the Black Panther costume, and I admit I just sort of stood there. I was like, that was the one. That was the one that hit me. You know, I looked under all the Iron Man Mark whatever costumes to see if there was like a place he could go pee. I was not in awe the same way, because that movie was such a cultural phenomenon, and it was so crafted, and every character had a place. And then there was battle rhinos, but they'd stitched in Wakandan phrases into the suit, hand stitched it in. Nobody on the screen saw that, but
Exactly.
the
No one did.
actors knew they were there, right?
Yeah.
And those are the things I'm like, there was a love in the making of this film. It was not just crass, let's make $1 billion the way the Captain Marvel movie was.
Right.
And I stand by that. I like Goose the Flurkin in Captain Marvel, but that was a cash in. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was we need a movie between the two Infinity Wars to make money in this. It's an EA, an EA video game strategy. What game are we pushing this quarter?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It wasn't made with love. It wasn't made with a lot of thought. You can
Right.
tell which characters the creators really care about. Same with He-Man. Again, I really think they really just liked Tila
Yeah.
and found the unresolved elements of her story interesting.
Mm-hmm. Which,
And
to be fair, that they hardly touched on them in most versions. Again, the DC comic notwithstanding. Yeah, there's a lot of untapped potential that almost no one has utilized. I'd jump at it too if I was in their shoes.
but also, how many stories have there been that the best friend of the hero goes on a quest to resurrect said hero? It
Star Trek
happens all.
3?
Well, Star Trek 3 again, yeah, but there's been a lot of things. I mean, even The Witcher, a lot of the stories are from Dandelion's point of view, right? From Jaskier's point of view. In the stories, right? He's always getting into trouble, and Geralt's always having to bail him out. But Jaskier's the one driving that action, right? He gets into some sort of political coup or something like that. Like, oops, didn't mean to. And people don't bat an eye at that. It's like those episodes of Xena that focused on Joxer. Even those existed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody remembers Joxer, like Ted Raimi, Sam's brother. For some odd reason, people lost their shit on this one. And I'm not, before anybody gets all defensive or gets all, you're calling me sexist. No, I'm not.
No.
I
Big
think
difference.
I do think that the well has been poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's what this show is doing.
No, I do not either.
I think that the people involved in this show may have lived kind of in rarefied air and not really realized what the ground truths are. And I mean, let's face it, if The Last of Us 2 fiasco hadn't happened, I really don't think people would be this sensitive. I think that if some of the other like WTF things had not happened, people would not have been this sensitive. There is a raw wound. That's not the fault of the show, right? Like, people making this stuff, animation's a really intense process. And when you go down that rabbit hole, you lose touch with what's going on in the world. I mean, the worst thing you can do when you're making something is going on the internet and see what people think about you. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's not fair to a show when it gets caught, like you said, this culture war shock trooper thing. I do think it's important to separate there are some truly bad actors, some grifters driving this stuff. The leaks were presented in the absolute worst possible light, to the point that I would argue that they were more inaccurate than they were accurate.
Exactly, but then people have them rework how they're doing. It's like, oh, it was because leading up there they said sideline, meaning he was stepping aside, girlfriend, lesbians. But then it comes out, they then reword it saying like, oh, sideline, but oh, that means sideline. Oh, it doesn't mean lesbian. But it's like, that's what you guys were pushing for the past year.
That's right. And there's no getting around that. And okay,
but they changed their mind then.
People got fooled. That's fine. That's not the fault of the people who were fooled. You were not bad or dumb for trusting somebody you had no reason to not trust. Right. I do think we need to message that. At the same time, this is the power of framing. This is the power of priming. You can put an idea in somebody's head so they can look at something and they're no longer coming at it to see what's there.
Right.
They're seeing what they were primed to see.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying as well. That's the
Yeah.
problem. These people have been so primed or even conditioned in some regards to think this, that they're going in, they can't see any other way. They claim they would, but you know deep down they never were going to. He-Man could have been the best thing ever. And yes, you might have had Teela in the lead, but it could have been written and handled a whole lot better. Nope. Teela is still in the lead. Oh, lied. Oh, girlfriend.
But let's face it. Teela is... It's the Teela show for maybe 2 out of the 5 episodes.
Yeah,
first episode, no.
The first one. Yeah, definitely not the
first episode, no. Episode 2 and 3, sure. But she's building the team.
Exactly.
Right?
And she's the one who decides to get Man-at-Arms. It's not the sorcerer saying, go get him, and Teela's begrudging. No, she says, we need Man-at-Arms.
Well, it ends up being the Teela, Man-at-Arms, Orko, Evelyn Beastman show. And if you look at that, that is and Andra, she's, let's face it, there are certain things they just have to do to get things made right now. But Andra, to me, is the audience proxy of people who came later to the show and may not get they needed someone who wasn't there to explain certain things.
Exactly.
So
and that's to remind us of Teela, how she used to be as well.
Right. But if you look at that, the roster of Man-at-Arms, Teela, Orko, Beastman, and Evelyn, that is the core cast of the original He-Man show, minus He-Man and Skeletor. It's not the Teela show. It's not.
It's not. You know, it's the Masters of the Universe. People are saying it's like He-Man's in the title. Where's he in the title?
I took such crap for pointing that out. Because then they start pointing out the poster. And I challenge people to look up some of the marketing for the Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episodes 1. A lot, especially overseas, Darth Maul was front and center, and we all know what happened there. And a lot of people were disappointed. They thought he was going to be the new Vader, right? Yeah. But you can't.
It would take a cartoon show to kind of give us more with him, but
yeah, no kidding. They needed to bring him back, and then they tried to kind of bring him back again, but Solo kind of flopped, which I was bummed at. I quite enjoyed that movie, but I mean. I've said this before, but I realized I had to stop taking the bait with marketing. I made a rule to myself, and it's like, I'm going to consume marketing for something until I decide I am going to buy this or I am going to watch this. And then I'm going to stop because you got to understand how TV marketing works. They're given advanced assets. They do not see the script because they don't want leaks, right? They are given a series of assets. They are given a series of talking points. There is broken telephone. I mean, I hate keeping going back to Disney Plus, but I'm guessing that your audience knows it because you're like, yay! Think about the production stills that were released on Loki. That vote Loki politician character was in everything, everywhere, right? The character was on screen for maybe 5 minutes before he gets his hand bitten off by alligator Loki.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, because he looked like normal Loki, that obviously threw things off. If they had put Old Man Loki, which would have been a big spoiler.
Oh my God, wasn't he great? Wasn't Richard Grant great? Oh my God, I loved him.
It felt like, you know what I probably call him? I call him 616 Loki because he felt so much like 616
Oh my God, he made those saggy draws work in that old school costume.
Exactly.
We loved him in this house.
And him going out with a bang.
But people thought he was gonna be Kang in some rumors because why would you cast somebody like this? Well, because he wanted to have fun.
Technically, we never didn't have Kang. We had Immortus.
Oh, apparently they're not even calling him that. He's just the one who remains, which is what they called Immortus.
Which, to be fair, though, I think that way you don't take Immortus off the board. You have to be a version of him.
Also, they're on the record saying Kang the Conqueror premieres in Ant-Man, which isn't for a couple of years. So they're threading the needle on we're not lying by saying that's not Kang.
Or the multiverse stuff as well. Technically, we have the multiverse set up, but it is before all of that, and hence why Doctor Strange is called the Multiverse of Men.
Yeah,
Madness of
it's all set up. Like they needed to have the multiverse so you can have a movie called The Multiverse of Madness. See also WandaVision, blah blah blah.
I will say though, with Loki, I do like how some fan expectation were met better here than the other two series. Like people predicted Miss Minute was going to be involved in some regard, and sure enough, at the end, she is more involved.
The first 2 episodes of that show were great.
Yeah.
And the last 2 episodes of that show, with some real sour notes, were a lot of fun. Immortus, amazing. I can't wait to see more of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of setting expectations for what that show was, every 2 episodes I had to reset. I was like, this is not what I expected at all, right? Based on the production stills. I thought it was all gonna be like that insanity on episode 5 with a whole bunch of them running around and causing chaos and, you know, breaking shit. And it's just a really fun romp. Like, so I had to sit with it. And is this just me not meeting my expectations, or were there actually problems with it? And, you know, after much deep contemplation, I decided I still fucking hate Sylvie. So there we go.
Right? I liked her, but I respect her opinion.
I don't, and that sort of thing. It's sort of what these should be, right? Is okay. Why did you like her? Why did you not like her? That's what these should be. Not you have a difference of opinion. Well, you have a different opinion. Go to war. A female friend of mine, she's a Marvel super fan, right? Like, and she really likes Sylvie. And when we talked about it, because people talk about it, right? She's actually someone I met because she totally disagreed with me on Endgame. So it's really funny. We became really good friends because she thought Iron Man was big hero. I'm like, no, Iron Man, like that was just war crimes a go-go. Endgame. Like you slaughtered an entire army without offering a chance of surrender. But we ended up becoming friends about the back and forth in that. And I learned more about the Chitauri than I ever wanted to know. But the same thing, we were at it. I was like, she was coming at it of, well, nobody's gonna look good standing next to Tom Hiddleston. Right? He's just too good. Everybody's gonna pale in comparison. Whereas I came at it of, Tom Hiddleston is a collaborative actor. If you can't pull more of a performance out of that than she did, something is very wrong. But you notice how close we were in our reasons for the 2 opinions? That's what we discovered. And it I personally think the entire construction of Sylvie was overdoing it. The idea of a character that has been jumping from apocalypse to apocalypse from the age of 8. The line was longer than Loki has been alive, which means if he's even remotely close to Thor, it means she's 1,500 years old plus. So 8, so like 1,400 some odd years going from apocalypse to apocalypse. She would practically be savage. She would not be the cool, logical. She'd have some of that Hannah John Kamen and Killjoy's energy, or even Hannah John Kamen and Ant-Man. And Hannah John Kamen should have played that character. Period. End of story. Or somebody like her. The performance did not match the biography of that character.
Definitely. I hate when there's cases like that where they set up this cool backstory, then you realize, wait, that doesn't add up when you actually think about it.
But you're like, yeah, it's dumb. I still liked her. She's cute. That's what my friend said. She's cute. I'm like, I want to punch cute. And
it's Lady Loki, even though technically she's in
No, Lady Loki looks like Sif. And Sif was in the show. And they didn't do Lady Loki. And I
agree. I agree with it. But to be fair, that's a Lady Loki. That's Loki that's possessing Sif, as opposed. But you've had other cases of Lady Loki.
Oh my God, we're totally nerds. Totally nerding right now.
That's what I love about this.
This is so good. But here, Enchantress 2 in the comics is not a Loki. She was created by Loki. She was a Loki Smurfette. She was created by Loki the way Gargamel created Smurfette. But fine, whatever. But see, this was fun.
I love the little debates like that.
Yeah.
It's like if we were debating this up with He-Man, like again, I will say this. That's one thing I did also like. They're not going with the Keldor, He-Man's uncle. The moment he said
Yeah,
he's just a boy, I'm like, well, that wasn't part of the 80s. That was
we
not part
don't
of the 80s version.
we don't know that though because they were slipping into it. This was one of the weirder exchanges, right? Somebody said they turned Skeletor into an incel, and I'm like, but what?
What?
Hold the phone. You got to explain
No.
this to me,
And
right?
then, okay.
That line where look at my face, child. I have had a
He
very
used to
lonely
have skin on his face. That's what he means.
Yeah, like you ever seen a kid with a cleft palate? They get shunned. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's one thing I do like about the. If you ever read the He-Man, the Master of the Multiverse comic,
yeah, I
at the
remember
how
very
you
little of it though.
well, you have the Keldor, anti-Keldor, half his face, and it stays that way. Even when he becomes He-Man,
That's right.
he
That's
reverts
right.
back to normal. I do like that, how you have half and half. Now, granted, you could say, well, he's still a hands-on. I was like, yeah, but when you look at it, he almost went evil because he got scarred
See,
because of that.
I have to watch my memory of He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse because there was a lot of He-Man, well, Skeletor, Keldor fan fiction coming out at the time. So I have to make sure I'm not misremembering some fan fiction I read
Go
as
right
the
ahead. Go right
comic.
ahead and ask it. I got it right here.
Yeah. But I mean that was a different attempt. It's like that horribly dark Thundercats comic that came back, where like Wily Kit and Wily Cat were like sex slaves and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and the funny thing, they came out of after they did that awesome Superman Thundercats crossover, and then they did a new thing, that thing after, like, how's it following up from that?
well, what that happens is, oh wow, this sold, so people want a more mature Thundercats, but they don't realize there's a line, and then they did that Cal Arts Thundercats Roar thing, which obviously to set the world on fire because it. There's an example.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm a hardcore
Give me
Thundercat.
Teen Titans Go over Thundercats. Or although the funny thing is, it was the writers of Teen Titans Go that did that whole poop people with poop opinions. That was the Teen Titans Go writers, not the Thundercats Roar writers. But unfortunately, people just.
But think about the first season of Teen Titans. It wasn't very good. They got on the horse after that, right? Like that show got good.
It got good at the season finale.
Yes, that's right. But second season,
have a father. Come on, I already have a father. That was best moment of the series.
But like, there's an example of Thundercats Roar came out. Thundercats fans like me, full disclosure, I have a Cheetara cosplay. I am a big Thundercats fan. Okay, but Lion-O's my boy. But cross-playing Lion-O I thought might be too weird because he doesn't wear a shirt. But but you know, Thundercats Roar came out. We were all like, this is not my Thundercats. There was a bit of a kerfuffle. Everybody's like, what is that art? But we sort of like, we're going to go do other things. Oh, look, furry art on the internet. There is, we're going to look at a lot of really, really smutty Tigra slash art, right? And we're going to pretend that Thundercats Roar does not exist. And it didn't become a thing. It went away with a whimper.
Yep.
You know, this is the sort of thing where that if you really don't like something, the best weapon is apathy.
Yep, definitely.
Because all they notice is what the numbers are. You know, She-Ra was all right. The new She-Ra. It was all right. It was not great. And I'm very careful about this because I was never a She-Ra fan. So, you know, hardcore She-Ra fans may
believe it or not, I was.
Okay, so there you go. You are more of an expert on this than I am. To me, She-Ra was okay. It wasn't great. I really don't think it would have gotten the number of seasons it did were it not for the curiosity based on the controversy. And once somebody starts watching something, they continue it. Because look at the Carmen Sandiego show. Equal quality.
I love that show. That was so well done.
I like that her sidekick was from Canada, because I'm from Canada.
Right. But I'll say this, though, with that, at first, and I did a video, it's still one of my more viewed videos still, at least for this show, not my old cartoon videos, where I was talking about the two series, and I wasn't so sure about her working against Vile. Then the show came out, and then I watched it, I'm like, oh, that's where they're going. And they made it work. It could have gone badly. It could have gone very badly.
Yep. But she was also younger. You know, she's not the Carmen Sandiego we know. It's a prequel, so on and so forth.
And she also never crossed the line. Even in the old cartoon, she made it very clear. no killing.
Yeah.
And
Meanwhile, in the original game, there's like knives being thrown at you and guns being shot at you, and like yeah, all that stuff. But
yeah, but
there was no controversy, right?
yeah,
There wasn't this whole big shitstorm that created a bunch of curiosity. Obviously, something is working in terms of this rage bait marketing on the part of Netflix. So
yeah,
the back five of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, it's going to be huge. It's going to be
I
a
think so.
monster for Netflix because now everybody's heard about the controversy, everybody's watched out of curiosity, and people want to see how it ends.
Yep. And then you're also going to have people who are saying, I'm not going to watch it. Yeah, you are, because you want to see how much worse it's going to get if it's going to get worse. You are so going to watch it.
I know one guy, I actually respect him a lot. He actually did boycott it just based on he didn't like the marketing, not going to give him the watch. I respect the hell out of that. Good for them. Like he stood up to his principles. He's not acting like an expert on the show. Like he's not talking about points. He's like, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
Me the most. That's what's got me the most out of this whole fiasco. It's this whole stupid. The true real fans are the ones would hate it. If you don't hate it, you're not a real fan. And in your case, look at the toys. In my case, look at the comics. Pick my brain. Nope, doesn't matter. You're liking it. You're not a fan. It's like
that's just stupid. I'm sorry. I try not to use the word stupid, but people can be massive fans of something and like it or not like it. I mean, you know, the Witcher series on Netflix was also very divisive.
Oh yeah.
Some people really liked it because Henry Cavill's fantastic. But in fairness, Henry Cavill is playing the Geralt of Rivia from the video games, not the books.
He's a fan of the game.
Well, he knew what more people were aware of. Like in the books,
which
Geralt.
I give him so much props, how much nerdiness he brings up in almost any interview. Like the one we pointed out that chandelier or whatever, you're like, oh my God, what a super nerd.
I don't know if you've read the stories, but Geralt talks a lot in the books because he has to. You have to explain the lore, and so he has him going on at length about these various monsters. He doesn't do that in the games, and apparently they were rewriting around him to take out a lot of the dialogue because he did it in the acting. That's, you know, that is a change from the books. Some people really liked it because they watched around that. I don't know what that is, but that is not Yennefer of Venderberg. Like most of that just didn't happen. And it's so weird because the creator is like, oh no, it's great because he got a big fat check from Netflix, right? Whereas he's down on the games.
Yeah, gee, because he brushed it off, didn't think much of it. And now, in his defense, the first one was, if I remember right, did not do gangbusters.
Oh, the first one was not good.
Yeah, it was wasn't the second one, and then the third one is really
the second one was okay, but it was still kind of
the third one get that huge head. Was it just
different creative director? Different creative director. The creative director on Witcher 2 went to make Cyberpunk. And somebody else stepped in for 3.
Sometimes it works on one thing, sometimes it doesn't work on the other.
Witcher 3 is a beautiful game. It's an absolutely wonderful game. But okay, let's face it, Witcher 3 has the benefit of having both Yennefer and Ciri in it. So it's like, it's the definitive, the whole gang's back together. Right? But yeah, I mean, there's an example of that was a change from the books. I think it was presented better. I think because many more people knew He-Man, many more people had an opinion about He-Man. It's closer to something like a Tomb Raider, where people may not have played the games, but they're aware of the character, right?
Yeah, you have the people who are aware. You have the people who are the fan of the first series of games. Then the reboot trilogy, and then the other reboot trilogy, then the movies, and then the reboot movie.
And let me tell you, I personally thought overall, even though they weren't great, the Angelina Jolie movies were better Lara Croft movies than that Alicia Vikander film.
Oh yeah, there's a reason, and how soon were they able to get the sequel for that one compared to this one?
Well, I don't know if they're even making a sequel. I don't know how well. Oh, are they?
They are writing it. They are still writing it.
Here's my problem with the Tomb Raider movie. Lara Croft is watching two men fight each other at the end of a Lara Croft movie.
What the heck?
That's not a Lara Croft story.
Even as a prequel before she became full-on Lara Croft makes no sense. At least even the game she did it.
Oh, the games, Lara spends a lot of time alone. Lara
Mhm.
is never passive. She does
Exactly.
some things that are actually downright reckless, like putting
Hmm.
poor oh, I always confuse the butler's name. I keep wanting to
Oh,
call him
oh.
Jarvis because my nerds are getting crossed.
I just say that too, just for like is it
Jarvis.
either Alfred or Jarvis?
Yeah, I know both are probably wrong,
Yep.
but I know it's not Jeeves. But you know, she's shoving him in a closet and things like that. She's a bit of a
Oh,
brat, but
the
that's
freezer. Shove him in the freezer.
yeah, but I mean that was a character point. She wasn't a good girl, right?
Winston. Winston.
Winston. Yes. See, I think Winston, I think Ghostbusters. This is what happens when your nerds collide, right? But
Hmm.
I think that, you know, getting back to the central point of He-Man, a lot of these things, you know, a lot of the references we're pulling in, they're all relevant because this is all sort of this is a moment where for a while there, those of us that were kind of shunned for liking this stuff back in the day
Oh yeah.
were all of a sudden kind of cool.
Yep.
You know, my mother calls me or emails me after she watches movies, and I have to explain everything to her because she's still very confused,
Right.
especially the Lord of the Rings films. But
Oh boy.
like all of a sudden, the stuff that people turn their noses up at my interests as a kid, suddenly it's useful information.
Hmm.
We're coming out of that window of usefulness
Hmm.
into a period where it's this stuff is running on its own steam now. They don't need the old fans to explain.
Yeah.
And now it's like this thing that you help build is not for you anymore. And
Oh, I hate that phrase, but I know what you mean. I know what you
you
mean.
know what I mean though, right?
Hmm.
Like, let's face it.
It basically we were there to hold prop it up, but now they built the ground underneath. That's like okay.
Well, I'm not used to one of these properties actually being for me. I'm having to really adjust my thinking on
Hmm.
this He-Man show because it's like, yeah, this show is actually made pretty much for me.
Exactly.
That's weird,
But
you
the
know?
funny thing is, these people they want every episode to be the first episode of this series, and it's like I wanted to say it wouldn't have held up at all. You could
Oh,
not do a whole.
you're talking about something that went from like standalones because they tended to air the episodes out of order to
Yep.
an ongoing story immediately. That's going to be a change, but okay,
Well, actually, to
that's
be fair, I'm a guy who grew up just rewatching. My one recording I had was the Secret of the Sword movie that brought in She-Ra. That had the best writing of the entire franchise.
okay.
That
Okay,
is the
that
best writing because, for one, they actually showed G-rated, of course, what it's like to have a dictator. And I always
yeah.
remember the bit where Adora goes out, leaves the fright zone, and sees it like the guy, an old man, collapses. On your feet, slave. Water. I must have water. You want water, huh? Give you water. Throws him into the
Yeah.
drink. Or guys talk bad about the taxes. His house is leveled. You're like,
Yeah.
Jesus, that's
See,
great writing.
I was always mad in 2002 that Cringer didn't talk anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So I admit they kind of looped me back in the minute Cringer talked. I'm like, yeah,
You named me Cringer because
yeah,
I was scared. You
yeah,
weren't wrong.
yeah. But I mean, it's like, okay, they understand that they're not moving away from the stupid. But
Yeah.
I actually needed a minute where I wasn't just, yes, I understand it's not for me. Okay, I see your point. On this one, I'm like, no, this
Yeah.
is for me. And, you know, then the
It's
whole thing about,
Unleashed. It's the original show Unleashed. That's what Kevin said. It was the lore unleashed.
but then the issue of gender comes up and He-Man being a boys show
Uh,
and,
there's a
you
reason
know,
why they knew they could get She-Ra going because girls were liking He-Man, so they were like, "Why don't we tap into that more?"
well, but also, what does that say about the subscribers that Netflix are trying to attract, right?
Oh boy, yeah.
That's just business, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason they're making. I don't know why they picked Yennefer instead of Triss on The Witcher. Quite frankly, Triss is a much more relatable character
Mm-hmm.
or Siri. Siri, focus on
Yeah.
Siri. Yennefer, you need a bit of distance from because she is very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Yennefer front and center. She-Ra before He-Man, even something like Stranger Things with 11.
Mm-hmm.
There's clearly a formula. And this is something I thought that maybe because people remember those early Marvel shows with like Daredevil but
Mm-hmm.
even the later ones, I mean, Jessica Jones was, I think, led too much into misogyny as the bad guy.
Yeah.
I didn't like what they did with Purple Man, but
Mm.
that's
David
just,
Tennant was great though, but
he was good, but again, there's an example of, I'm like, this is really derivative. I read the
mm-hmm.
Jessica Jones comics. I really like the Jessica Jones comics. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Luke Cage I loved, but
Mm-hmm.
Misty Knight. I mean, Misty Knight, really strong woman on that show. My favorite of those was The Punisher.
Of course.
That was just so good. But then some people said it was kind of tame, and they're not wrong. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, you can only push so far.
Oh, can I say one thing? When you mentioned Daredevil, I got to mention whenever people bring up about complain about race and everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know what my go-to is always is that seems to shut things down? Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. Can anyone name anyone more perfect? I love Vincent D'Onofrio, but Michael Clark Duncan was Kingpin. They had
Oh,
a,
unpopular opinion. I did not like Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin.
I didn't want to say I hated it, but I'm still tainted by Michael Clark Duncan, who was
He was great.
perfect. In fact, the only thing they ever had to change to go about his race was saying he was raised in the Bronx, which
Well,
you could still fit was regular Kingpin, but
well,
it has more impact.
Hell's Kitchen is not the Hell's Kitchen of when when Marvel created that character.
Right.
I don't think
It
that was a
isn't.
Stanley creation. I'm trying to remember who created Daredevil.
Hold on, I think it was because he was in Spider-Man.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
it was. Hold on. Yep, Stanley and John
it was
Romita
Stanley.
Sr.
Oh, John Romita Sr. was who I was
Yep,
thinking of, because I
yep.
don't think Romita gets
Spider-Man
enough
50.
credit.
Spider-Man 50.
Okay, so it was a Stanley crypt. That's very Romita.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we have to start asking, is race essential to this character, right?
In Kingpin's case, I look at it, it could have gone either way.
Exactly. I feel that way about the Little Mermaid. Yes, the little Ariel's a redhead, and they cast a black girl, but is it essential that Ariel is a redhead? Well, no, because in the original folktale, the Hans Christian Andersen story, she's blonde, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, but also the essential characteristic of Ariel is her voice,
Yeah,
not the way
exactly.
she looks. So you need to cast first and foremost based on the voice. We also have to recognize that a calypso tune midway through without a black cast is going to be problematic. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
keep Kiss the Girl, lose the redhead. I'm okay with that. But people look
Mm-hmm.
at me weird because we have these really narrow boundaries on what representation means, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people shouldn't be forced into uh only relating to characters that look
Oh,
like them. There's other,
I'm getting so fed up with it,
see what
hearing
I
all
mean?
that.
Yeah, like there's most of the guys who looked up to He-Man, let's face it, don't look like He-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, no.
I had guys screaming, I know guys who got ripped and joined the military because they grew up worshiping He-Man. It's like, all
You know,
right, but results not typical, right?
and you also remember how, and I think and I think it might go a different route than you're thinking of. When the 2000 series came out, people were ticked off because of like, why doesn't He-Man's Adam look like He-Man? So it's like that was a limitation of filmation and the toys. Whereas
it was
it's
also
like,
just silly, and some things stale date, like some things don't
yeah,
age well,
I
right?
know it's like it was meant to be Shazam.
Yes.
It was, people forget that it was meant to be Shazam, so he's supposed, which is why people say, "Oh, Tila's better than Adam." No shit, she was always better than Adam.
Yes, she was always more skilled than Adam himself in the show. That is true. That is
Yeah.
canon.
And it wasn't like he was holding back. No, he was not skilled at all, no matter how much she taught him.
Yeah.
He might throw someone like with the best of them, but that was usually all he could do was throw. Now, the big question is, how much of He-Man's sword knowledge is Adam, and how much of it is whatever the sword's giving him?
Don't think about it. Don't. It's not.
I'm just saying, that is a good question. That is a fair question, though.
Yeah, it's not Shazam. I enjoyed Shazam. I'm sad that he's not Captain Marvel anymore. I still make that mistake. But they explain he's like the wisdom of Solomon, the speed of this, like all that stuff.
And they have to come up with a way of saying he can tap into the knowledge. It's not there all the time because you overthink it.
He-Man doesn't have that. He's
Yep.
He-Man. By the power
Yep.
of Grayskull, I have the power. That's all we know. Fine, right? And this is a very simple show. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, the Lou Scheimer and people like that, they would not want people fighting over this show.
No, they would not.
That
They would not.
yeah, if you ever had a chance to hear
The
him
voice for
speak,
She-Ra gave her approval.
yeah,
She gave her approval, which she did not for the Netflix She-Ra, from what I recall. She did not, because she did not like how the people involved were pushing at the old fans. She did not like that.
yeah, I mean, He-Man was, because just it had this sprawling cast of characters and it was a toy line as well as a show. You have to keep in mind a lot of people made up their own stories, and they're like, I had to check myself about the Keldor Evelyn fan fiction. I think they're forgetting what the show actually was. And
Yeah.
it cast such a wide net, right? They had tomboy girls like me who are like, Tila's way cooler than She-Ra, right? But then they had the kids who may, you know, may have been gay at the time and saw other things like a secret identity, right? And then they had other people who just liked that he was strong, and then there were other people who liked the misfit element of that show, and they're definitely leaning harder into the misfit angle. And everybody's got a part to play. That seems to be where they're going with this for me, is that everybody has a part. He-Man doesn't do it alone. It's all about,
no, yeah, because that's what it should have been, if you ask me. And that's one thing I think the 2000 series got better when He-Man was around. It, they did make it more about the team. Same with the DC Comics. It's about the family. It's about everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone gets it. Tila and Evelyn become sorceresses in their own right, which I love that about with Evelyn. I did not see that coming. They set it up, but I didn't actually become the sorceress of Holocaust.
She's the biggest wild card in the Netflix show.
Oh, I think so, though. That look she gave before she went to Skeletor, she's up to something.
I think so. Yes. I mean, that's the 2002 Evelyn coming back. She was always up to something. Yep. There's clearly more driving her here. She's not like, she was very helpful with Orko, and I mean, Lena Headey was just the perfect person to do that voice.
Hands down, yes.
So good. And her microphone technique, the fact that she spoke very softly but was clearly very close to the microphone, it created a very interesting quality, sort of mystical quality to her voice. That was very, very cool.
Like some call it sorcery, I call it magic.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's a wild card. I honestly don't know. And I mean, clearly it's going to end with Skeletor still around and He-Man still around. There's going to be some sort of wah-wah at the end of the Skeletor thing, because there has to be, right? But they're clearly not. They're clearly going to leave this open for another season. Now, whether Kevin Smith will come back
after this, I don't think so. After this, don't.
They'd have to he'd have to be totally redeemed. Like, fandom would have to really put their arms around him.
Not going to happen anytime soon.
Because, I mean, he walked away from a Superman movie because he was afraid it was going to suck, right? He was like, I don't want to do these big things anymore. I don't want to ruin people's childhoods. And they brought him back based on the idea. He said no to doing this. But
and I will say this. People complain about saying, oh, they worry about Kevin Smith isn't a fan because he said that. And I say this. I'm not that surprised, actually, because when you look at, I personally look at, and that Variety interview kind of confirmed it, a lot of this was Rob David's initial idea, and he's not a writer. He always needs to have another writer, or he has to give the plots to a writer, which is what he kind of did here as well. And I think someone tapped Kevin for him because Kevin had marquee value. He's the biggest geek in all of Hollywood. But I don't think they even looked into the fact, like, are you a fan or not? I'm pretty sure Kevin just said, like, oh, sure, I knew about it. Not expecting that old episode of Comic Book Man to bite him in the butt.
Well, but also, why did anybody expect Kevin Smith, who is 50 years old, to be a He-Man? He's around the same age as my husband, and my husband was a teenager when He-Man came out. Of course, he wasn't like the biggest fan. It's the same way I talk about like Pokemon, for instance, or Power Rangers. I was too old for those shows. I was too old. I was too old for Pokemon. And so it came out and I liked it, and I like Snorlax, and I'm glad Snorlax is finally getting his due. But
Norlax.
I'm not gonna fight someone on the finer points of Pokemon. But if I went in to write something, sometimes it's really good. Um, this is going to be a really weird. Exine Cervenka of a punk band called X said that there were 70. Okay, so you know the band.
No, I don't know of it. I'm just nodding like.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're doing the hipster thing. Awesome.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. That was good. That was a good. I'm like, oh, I thought this was going to be really obscure, but I will explain it for the audience.
Yeah.
Really, like L.A. experimental punk band heyday in the 70s happens to be the ex-wife of Viggo Mortensen, who's Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. There's the nerd tie-in, but this is about music. And she said that the thing that made X work is that all the guys in the band, including the main like songwriter and everything of the band, John Doe, they knew what they were doing, and I didn't. You need that outsider to come in and go, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
do you think Kenneth Branagh was a big fucking Thor fan when he agreed to direct that? He was a Shakespearean guy.
Yeah.
And, like, sorry, that Thor movie, most of that was not in the comics.
Yeah, exactly. Most of that was not. But in fact, that's why I get so annoying. People are now demanding one-to-one adaptation.
Yeah.
It's like, you never had that. Why start now?
No, Captain America was not a series of Steve McQueen homages, right?
No, it wasn't. Right, the fact you have Bucky not be a teenager anymore, right, tells you right then and there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
He's
stuff.
older than Cap.
There's a lot of stuff where people have not been like hardcore fans of something, gone in and done a perfectly fine job.
No,
right?
You can't. This is why I have my own fictional characters I've always wanted to work on, but I make sure I come up with versions for each type of media I'm going to do it in. I am not expecting my stuff to work in one medium to translate to cartoon or live action or movie and TV. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting to rework them for each version.
There's also a gut check you do when you're not a fan of something. And I mean, with my web show Boss Fight, a lot of those characters are based on, they were things I made to get some joy out of really terrible things that happened to me. Right? Like the Beelzebub character was a character I created after Progressive Gaming called me literally the devil. Right? And I'm like,
I love that character. That's my favorite.
But there was an example of a character who's like, oh wow, that's really annoying. When it first came out, it's like, have you guys not seen Hyacinth Bouquet? And Keeping Up Appearances, like that was the hello puppets. But I mean, the funny thing about Social Justice Warrior is that was supposed to be a one-off. As the heel character that gets murdered Mortal Kombat style by Beelzebub, but people just thought the outrage was funny. But obviously I was taking the piss out of a social phenomenon in this one. And I realized that as I was playing the character, it's like, I'm playing this character as a man. This character isn't a woman. This character is a man. Because who would say, and I am here to save the world and all the women in it as a woman? Like, there's species if they're not one, right? I caught that.
I can think of a few times, but you're right. I get what you mean.
Yeah, but it's like, all right, check that. And then Princess Sparkle Muffin, again, was supposed to be a really annoying Princess Peach, but people love these characters. And it's like, all right.
You got to think about who they're basing it off.
Well,
you're basing it off of too. So
I had to identify, and this is against in the context of not being a fan of something and coming in. I had to identify the raw spite that went into the creation of a lot of these characters, and make sure that didn't infect the portrayal and become a cancer.
Oh yeah, that can happen way too easily.
And that is what would happen if you had a bunch of hardcore fans in that sort of just accepted that everybody hated Orko.
You get what Keith Giffen did. Make him become villainous, and everyone hated him.
That's right.
And then you take Skeletor to say, actually, and then they're like, oh God, I feel horrible.
Yeah, and you need somebody to come inside and go, okay, what about this? And what about this? You need fresh ideas.
Exactly.
right?
And that's what Kevin did. Originally, it was supposed to be all 10 episodes, Adam. Kevin said, why don't we take Adam off the board and focus on Tila for a little while? Just a little while, not the whole series.
And I don't even think it was a focus on Tila per se,
But the world.
the world, but also the focus was on Adam's lie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's
Which
face it. Do
Kevin
we
was
learn?
right comparing her to Lois. She always was his Lois.
Okay, but worse, right?
Oh, yeah, but worse.
Because nobody knew Superman's secret.
And he had no reason to tell Lois, but telling the captain of the guards and your long childhood friend.
Okay. Your adopted dad knows. The queen knows, right?
Well, the queen figured it out, obviously.
The schmuck comic relief character that can't cast a spell properly knows.
The cat knows.
The cat knows. And, well, the cat always knows everything, but that's my world. And then the woman you don't know as your mother knows, like everyone around her.
Except the king.
And the king also had a terrible reaction.
Oh, yeah. Like I said earlier, I did not like the extent of the execution. The banishment, that fit character. Execution, way too overboard.
See, I think that was just to give Duncan some nobility so he could have that big, wow, Duncan's a really great dude.
Oh, yeah.
Moment.
I loved Duncan and all. People say, oh, he got simped. Where? Were we watching the same thing?
Really?
Yeah, people were saying he got dumped on them. All the men got put on just so the women could be propped up.
But okay, hold on. Duncan was right and Tila was wrong, and they make
he
that
their butts twice in the same episode, in the flashback and at the end.
That's why I was like, "Oh damn!" I think he's got a target painted on his back because they're making him really awesome.
Yeah,
you know.
I hope if they do it similar to the comics where he gives up his life for Tila's life.
I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I love that moment where he says, "I've always been a man of science, but I know a little magic." And
well, they also
magic of giving up your life.
Do you notice that Andra's skill set is interchangeable with Duncan's?
Mm-hmm.
She was the one tinkering with Roboto, and they can build another Roboto and still have him kind of there.
Oh, Roboto. I love that. I love that. I mean, I never really cared for the character, but here it made him endearing.
But they're also setting up the fact that they need to bring the Trollins back because now they have lost any ability to craft those magical weapons. It's all about the world, and it's all about a return of magic, and it's all about how, He-Man and the whole Castle Grayskull thing is essential to that world. And that's why when I look at those 2 episodes where they're following Tila, but it's not really about Tila. I keep thinking about, the early chapters of Dracula where Dracula's not in it. It's about the myth of Dracula. They're following Jonathan Harker.
Exactly. Because you got to remember, never is it any from it's all from first person narratives. It's all from letters and other things. So really the only time you ever see Dracula is if the other person ran into him and wrote it down. Right.
But also it's like when you think about jump to Harry Potter, you don't find out 90% of a character's backstory until they've been killed.
Yeah.
And then everybody talks about them, which you see with Skeletor, all that stuff about them really thinking Skeletor's an asshole could not come out unless Skeletor wasn't around. And nobody can talk if Skeletor's there because it's always silence, you fool, right?
You incompetent
fool. Yeah, exactly. It's always that nobody can talk. So if you want other characters to have a moment, Skeletor can't be there. You cannot have the other characters.
There's some things you can't do when characters are in the room.
Right.
That's why I say, I agree. That's why taking off He-Man and Skeletor, it worked. Now, I will
because there's no peril if He-Man's around.
Now, I will say this, with Triclops, I like that twist.
I did too. Oh my God. Trapjaw, Triclops.
Oh, I thought Andra killed Trapjaw, and I was like, oh, bullshit. But then seeing with the scar later, okay, I'm fine.
I like the tribal tattooing they gave Beastman too. Like I know people were really down on the redesigns, but I thought the Faker redesign was badass.
Yeah, definitely. Because is that right? It's like more robotic blue and not.
Well, it's like the Terminator, right? It's like what's under the blue skin, and the tribal tattoos on Beastman, and what they did with Trapjaw and the scars and Triclops. That was just funny.
I know, but I won't say that. But you know what fooled me? When they had the father and his daughter there, and then he gave drank it. I'm like, oh God, they're taking out the man and saving the daughter. But then when she was revealed to be a robot, that caught me off guard. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
But
I did not expect it.
it's
I was
giving the
expecting the
characters a
cliche.
moment, right? If
Yeah,
Skeletor's not gone, none of that
could
would
happen.
happen.
Yeah, no way. No way would Triclops or any of the other cybernetics want to take over. And I'm wondering what they did to Snake Mountain. What the heck? Where did that computer come from?
That's what Skeletor is gonna say when he comes
Where
back.
did this
And
computer come from? This metaphor.
it's like the main problem when you're making a Hulk story. What does Hulk smash? We have something for Skeletor to smash before he fights He-Man or after he fights He-Man. It gives you another excuse for action, right? That is always a problem. It's a challenge with writing a Hulk movie because you can't do that all the time. There's no pacing if you do that.
A TV show you could, like they did, but
yeah, because then he smashes something every week. But yeah, you need a build. But that's the thing. You take them so that other people get a turn, so then they can come back, and then it's the magician's trick, right? You failed the trick a couple of times. Well, you fail the trick a couple of times, so it's more amazing when you get it right.
Yep. Now, one thing I want to say before I forget, you want to know what really got me thinking, oh, this is going to be good? The moment we saw the toy of Skeletor powered up, and then I just pulled out my comics. What does it look like? Not exact, but close enough.
It is that, but it is also an homage to Night on Bald Mountain in Fantasia.
Yep. And what
it's the exact same composition.
And what did he say? Now I, Skeletor, am master of the universe.
And I mean, Hamill chewed that.
Someone better say, we don't say goodbye, we say good journey. Someone better say that near the end.
Oh, probably. I mean,
they say that in the comic, so I hope they say it in here because they just homaged the movie once. They better do it again because Frank Langella. Oh God, that's the only one thing I like about that live action movie is Langella's performance. That I am a god sequence.
The live action movie was. This is gonna sound weird. It was bad, but it was not that bad.
No, I agree.
It was fun. It was fun.
But it's Langella though that made it so. You remembered it because of him.
Yeah.
You might remember for Dolph, but you more remember for Langella and that speech.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing. There's people who want the stupid. I laughed at every bad joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then when people are like, the writing was bad, I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, those lines, I'm like, those are homages to the original show. Like, come on. You need the dad jokes. And they're like, the writing was bad. It's like, did you actually watch the 80s show?
Nostalgia goggles.
No, 100% they said, actually, I came in 2002.
Oh, the writing on that one was probably more straight compared.
It was more straight. It was more somber.
Yeah.
And so, if that's your frame of reference, but I mean, this is the exact same problem Star Wars is getting into as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes a good Star Wars movie? Like now they're smart because they've got the Mandalorian for the the original trilogy fans, and you've got Bad Batch for the Rebels fans and Clone Wars fans.
Which Rebels I always look at Rebels and Clone Wars, and all that, I look at the in between for both sides. It's like
it was the one that I think saved Star Wars.
Yeah, it kept it going. It kept the torch.
And I could never figure out why little boys loved Anakin Skywalker.
Because of Clone Wars.
They discovered him in the Clone Wars. They hadn't seen the movies until they saw Clone Wars. And it's like, all right, if your first experience...
That makes it fall more tragic. That makes it fall more tragic then.
Well, he has any sort of arc in the movies. He doesn't, right? But...
although in his defense, in George's defense, it was going to be even less of an arc originally until he decided on the shooting of, we need to stretch it out a little more.
But I also think that, I can see with Clone Wars why little boys would think Anakin's kind of cool. He's reckless and he makes mistakes sometimes, but
he has a good heart.
He has a good heart and he wins enough. And, him and Obi-Wan have this cool little quip thing going. And I get it. Like
which they did tease in Attack of the Clones. When they're on the elevator scene.
Yep. And so it's like, all right, if that's your first exposure to Anakin Skywalker, I totally get it.
Oh yeah, agreed.
the problem is, instead of going, okay, I mean, you really can't, but instead of going, we're going to make the 80s thing and we're going to make the 2002 thing, we're going to take Skeletor and Evelyn from 2002 and put them in the show with everybody else from 1980.
Yep. It's like Raphael from Ninja Turtles. You cannot look at most other versions after the original cartoon and then look back at the original cartoon of Raph and not think that's a totally different character. Where's the real Raph? Because you're so used to the hardcore Brooklyn, and then you look at the wisecracking comedian, and you're like, why is he not? Where's his edge?
And the original Ninja Turtles comic is unrecognizable compared to the series.
Definitely. And then you have Cobra Commander. You see anything beyond the cartoon. If you actually read the comics, you're like, oh shit, this guy is scary.
Yeah.
And then you hear the behind the scenes stuff of the cartoons. He was the Aunt Harriet or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing I felt was getting lost with everybody, using Teela as a red herring. The goal was to make Skeletor seem to have legitimate menace.
And he did. He definitely did. But not too much. They still made sure he had some buffoonery.
See, I actually think, yes, sure, but the fact that they actually managed to persuade people that he'd killed Prince Adam shows that they succeeded in that. They may have overdone it, but they succeeded in that.
I didn't see it coming. I did not see it coming. I'm like,
I actually did, because of the whole bait and switch the first time around. It's like Skeletor always keeps doing the same shtick until there's a reason not to do the same shtick.
Actually, I take it back. I did have a hint when you heard the voice in Evelyn's staff.
Well, I'm like, her carrying this thing around. Well, at one point when everything was happening, I'm like, where's Skeletor? Which one's Skeletor? Who's secretly Skeletor? And then she opened the bag. I'm like, yep, here we go. It's the same stunt he pulled in episode 1. And they were distracted and they're blockheads. So they kind of fell. I mean, even Evelyn didn't know, right? But that makes Skeletor's scheming actually relevant, instead of, he's just a putz that overcomplicates everything and it's doomed to fail. He actually got a win with one of his schemes. And I think
because no one knew but him. He kept it so close to the vest.
Yeah, but everything they're claiming is woke can actually be explained by their driving intention to make Skeletor scary.
Exactly. I mean, now that I will say this, when people are saying, oh, Teela and Andra are lesbians because of that stupid rumor, and I saw your arguments constantly with people saying, look at this, but then they bring up Korra and Asami, or then they say, if the leak said it's their girlfriends, it's like, then why did they have Evelyn teaser saying, I'm not the only one holding a torch for someone?
Yes, and you always got the sense that Teela was in love with Adam and wasn't real proud of it, because it's a thing of, audience proxy.
She never grieved. That's the problem. Her bitterness is because she never grieved. She just stormed out and just ignored it. Now it's coming back whether she wants to or not, and she has to grieve.
And people complain to me that Teela didn't cry. She didn't and I'm like, that's not her. She's captain of the guard. She's not that person. She's gonna go out and hit things with sticks because she doesn't know how to. Yeah,
Wonder Woman would do that. Superman would fly out into the asteroids and pound things.
I Hulk smash. I really think they're forgetting who Teela actually was in the show, because the Teela in their heads all these years has been something she actually wasn't. Like, people forget how much she made fun of Adam in the original.
Many times.
Oh, she was pretty brutal to him about things. Yeah,
exactly. So many times, because he was a wimp. Now, again, you have the little disconnect of Adam's this big P-Man bulky guy, and she's calling him a wimp. You're like, bitch, look at him. But it's like, no, you got to ignore that.
You have to realize she doesn't know.
Yeah, she doesn't know, and you got to ignore those muscles, because those muscles aren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's another thing I have issues with when people are screaming about redesigns. The whole art style is a redesign.
I argued with someone about that, and they said, if Kevin said this, it should have been stayed truer to the show and been exact. I'm like, they couldn't do that anyway, legal-wise. But two, I realized the guy was a troll. He was a troll.
There are
this one was a troll. This guy was a troll.
This one was, but I will say, I do know people have made that argument. I do see their point.
Yeah.
I have trouble internalizing the point simply because, I mean, the art style of this show is not, it is neither the 80s cartoon nor is it the 2002 cartoon.
It's
The
a
whole thing
blend.
is a redesign. It's a
Yeah.
blend, but it's also, they did go more anime style in 2002, but it's even more stylized than that. It looks
Yeah.
like the old like heavy metal
Oh
shorts
yeah.
on
Oh yeah. I had
MTV.
that vibes big time, especially when Evelyn had her hair down and everything. Which I gotta say, Evelyn, I thought the fact that she was better looking than Tila, I thought was like, wow. Now,
I admit that was one of the few gasps when she took off her helmet and she had long hair, because you know how previously it was all like short, like short cropped.
yep.
So when all this hair came out, I was like,
Oh, I've seen.
oh,
Well, that's one thing from the comics they did keep. Usually, she does have long hair when she has that off. Now, it being white or purple is where it's up in the air.
well,
Sometimes it's white.
again in the cartoon it was short and white,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, okay, but these things are all, and this is like the definition of redesign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I look at Tila, that's Tila. Like I immediately recognize her, I knew who she is. So that doesn't count as a redesign to me.
Yep. Oh,
Somebody else, it is a redesign, but I'm like, they didn't give her green hair,
yeah. And
right?
they complain about with Tila that haircut. No one complained about it with Cara Dune.
That's a good point.
No one compared about that with Cara Dune. She had the exact same hairstyle.
And I did always think that Tila had the hair that they gave every woman in like it was a throwback 50s style that really did not fit with the, and she does have it in the first scene.
Yep,
Right
and the
before the time
flashbacks.
jump. Yeah, and in the flashback she has that, but it really wouldn't suit the art style. It would feel
The
dated to
the
me.
ponytail from 2000s would have fit more. I
Except when
think.
you actually think about that, if she's a warrior, and this is something that comes up all the time, and I know realism has no place in
Right.
a show with a guy with a skull that talks. He wouldn't be able to form words. He has no lips, right? Right.
Yep.
But in combat, you don't want ponytails because that's something your
Oh yeah.
enemy can grab, right?
Yep.
And so to me, redesign is like those periods in comic books where suddenly they put Wonder Woman in an all white suit, right?
Or a leather jacket and barely showing so much skin.
Right. Or the Superman becomes Superman Red and Superman
And
Blue.
the electric blue as
Or
well.
that ridiculous redesign of Azrael when he went from this cool demon looking dude to that weird white power suit. Like that's a redesign.
Yeah,
the
white power. I'm trying to think about that one.
Oh, you don't remember that where it was like it was on the sides of his head and his hair came out, that it was bad.
Oh, that was when he got his own series.
Yeah. That was a bad
yeah,
redesign.
I prefer. That's why I'm glad when they had an issue when he got the old suit back on.
Oh, I did too. But
yeah.
I mean, the redesign of Starman, for instance, when they went to the modern Justice League and he was a guy from the future instead of just the guy from the staff, right? Yep. That's a redesign to me.
There's also different Starmen as well. Anyway, you got Starmen from Legion. You had Starmen. So many Starmen.
Yeah, but it's a completely different character. That to me is a reimagining, a redesign of the character. Tweaking the design to suit a different art style to me isn't a redesign. So again, I'm sitting here thinking, if Kevin Smith has the same definition of redesign that I do, he's saying no redesigns with a straight face.
Yeah.
Right? And people say, but Andra, I said he probably didn't even know.
Yeah, again, and like I said, I kept telling people, I'm like, oh, you're saying it's a small part. I'm like, I'm saying she never existed anyway.
Well, she wasn't in the comics. Yeah. Sorry, she wasn't in the cartoon.
In the cartoon, exactly. It was one issue. Yeah. One issue, she had a main prominent role. And like, well, how many people know about that? You guys, how many people who are complaining even knew who she was until they race bent her?
Well, yeah, let's face it. People Googled the wiki on that one.
And then they're like, oh, look at her. She was a redhead. Oh, and it's like,
no, she was blonde.
Blonde, yeah. Now, she was only a redhead in the Injustice comic, and that's probably the image people keep looking at because it's the most recent.
And that's the thing. Like, this is not, this is, I mean, to me, if I'm them, I'd be like, people are not gonna be emotionally attached
Yeah,
to a walk on, you know?
exactly. And that's why it wasn't a big deal for me because I'm like, I
Yeah.
was just like, Andra, who? Why is everyone complaining? I look her up. Really?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm a big
Personally,
fan. I'm a big fan, and I didn't even know who she was.
okay, personally, because I've worked in this industry in like
Hmm.
multiple roles, I have come across straight up legit sociopathic liars. They are
Oh.
there, they are in the industry. I have had game developers lie to my face about
Hmm.
major elements of games, and it happens. And that's why I'm really very hesitant to call someone a liar
Hmm.
unless there is no other reasonable explanation for it. A
Exactly.
lie is a deliberate falsehood. And here's why, okay?
Hmm.
If you just start throwing around the word lie, the liars get more powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't hold anybody to account because then people just say, "Well, that's just part of the job. That's just
Yeah.
part of it." It's like everybody lies. And this lie is feeding into this dodge that pathological liars use, that everybody lies. And
Hmm.
it's not true. There's a big difference between spin and lies. There's a big difference between the broken telephone that happens in the marketing for something like this. And you they would have clamped down hard after the first set of leaks, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, definitely. You would think, and
yeah.
I think that's why Kevin felt so confident when he said that. And again, technically, this is one of my problems. Is unfortunately the reason why they're saying he lied is because there's that ounce of truth in those leaks that they can then, like we said earlier, they can clamp onto. It's like,
Yeah. I I think you got to be really careful with the word lie,
yeah,
because
big
that
time.
is
Because
also the tactic actual liars use to discredit people who are telling the truth about the liar, right? Because what
yeah,
happens? Like, somebody says something truthful. Oh,
mm-hmm.
they're lying. And then you lied,
No,
and people have to
and
prove, and oftentimes you can't. You didn't
yeah,
have a camera rolling.
and that's the biggest problem with the stuff with Kevin Smith is that why are they holding him to every single word he says when they've never done it with others? They never even held Ryan Johnson, J.J. Abrams. They never held him to such tightness to the fire. Why is
Ryan
Kevin the
Johnson, they
exception?
did. J.J.
Well,
Abrams, I agree with you. They did not.
yeah, they did not. But yet, Kevin, they are holding every word. And then when he
I
says it,
I
lie.
I had hundreds of people call me a liar about The Empire Strikes Back, and 3 people apologized when it turned out I was telling the truth.
Yeah, and even I know that because it's like, uh, are people forgetting and looking at these movies in a vacuum for each release, not what we know now in hindsight?
I don't know. All I
Yeah,
know is that the idea that someone would lie about something that is very easy to prove, like
exactly.
that, like the accusation of lying no longer has any meaning.
Yeah,
They'll just
exactly.
jump to the next person, scream lie, 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 lie. And that means actual liars
Just
get
walk
away.
away.
Well, they get
They
away
just
with a
duck.
ton of
Yep,
stuff because the idea, oh,
exactly.
everybody just lies. It's a problem in our politics. It's a problem in, all these nerd spaces where a lot of these gates
Mm-hmm.
pop up, gamer gates, comics gate. They happen because of a fundamental breakdown in trust between the people making the products, the people covering the products,
Yeah.
and the people consuming the products. That's the underlying gears.
Oh yeah. Each of them started well enough with good
Yes.
reasons, but then they got taken over either by grifters or by other factors. And you had people who remember you were even bringing up how that article that came up and you were talking about was Gamergate and you felt bad for the people who are autistic and all that. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Now, I'm not saying how many people in
Oh,
there were autistic
that
because
that
I am.
was
I am autistic.
okay.
So
No, I was coming across a lot of people when I was talking to people who were on the spectrum.
yep.
And I think there might be some of that in this He-Man thing now. I'm noticing a lot of very literal interpretations of certain statements as opposed to recognizing that most people when they speak are just not as precise as the
Exactly.
expectation is,
Like,
right?
Mattel let me kill Adam. Adam 2 times at the end. Like, one, you would kill him in the first one, not the same episode. So you're just revealing he's dead. So you already tell right then and there Kevin was full of it.
Shining example though, right? That was hyperbole for effect. Kevin Smith does that all the time.
Exactly. And it's like, even I knew that. Even I knew he's joking. Because, again, I saw he stabbed him in the side. He ain't dead. He's just saying that because that's what anyone would say.
Well, and again, I think he was relying on that, and obviously this has been sort of lost to the mists of time. The Han Solo dies in Empire, Spock dies in
until
Wrath
he's
of
not.
Khan, until they're not, right?
Optimus is dead until he's not.
And that was the whole underpinning of the joke that I thought was assumed, and clearly a lot of people didn't get that. No, of course Han Solo wasn't dead. Of course Spock wasn't dead. That's the whole point. Neither is Adam.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Adam is dead. And again, I think that's one of the downsides of splitting it in half. That is the biggest downside. I think they
agreed.
should.
But for people to go, you lied, and you got caught, and now you're using the, it's a joke to cover the fact that you got caught. And I'm like, who the heck writes, like, seriously, in all caps like that? And
exactly. Or you're gaslighting. I've been told I've been gaslighting lately.
Well, it was imagine if Empire came out today. It's not a statement of fact anyway. It's hyperbolic speculation, right? Like the whole joke was, oh, you killed Han Solo for this woke crap about feelings. Like that is obviously not a literal comment.
Yeah, or like I said, like when I said, imagine a revolutionary girl, how you say, Utina, whatever.
I am the wrong person to ask about Japanese pronunciations.
Yeah, but so if that came out today, the same way, no changes, exactly as it was, they would lose their shit. They'd be saying anime is shoving this down our throat. When did anime get woke and everything?
I think there's a better case for that than what I said about Wrath of Khan, which was you killed Spock for woke crap about friendship. Because of course I am and always will be your friend, Jim, right?
Oh,
like
God.
The whole thing was so clearly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people bombarding me, calling me a liar, and
some of them were people I knew, and I'm like, oh, shut up, you guys. Even I got what she meant.
But it's one of those things that something deeper is going on here. These aren't people just suddenly losing their minds. These are people being actively misled.
Exactly. And that's what I've been saying before. A lot of these people are, because you do not have these YouTubers putting out the same video multiple times in one day with very subtle tweaks, where it's the repeat thing, but from I'm adding this little bit of information, this little bit to make it look like it's a brand new update.
But this is where we get into a fundamental problem with dealing with this, and I think this may be a good place to land here to discuss this and kind of close out. Because I think if we just keep nerding, we're going to talk for 4 hours.
I agree.
I am happy to come back on a different topic, but
I'd be fine.
I am acutely aware of what is called derailing, because I am an abstract thinker, so I go all over the place, and I'm trying to be very careful. But what is the compassionate response to the fact that a large portion of the fan base has been, in my opinion, here? They've been manipulated, right? And I do not feel like it is good. I do not think, this is not an emotional thing, this is a rational thing. I do not think long term that coddling people is the compassionate response. That is not treating them like adults. That is treating them like babies.
They're
Yeah. You do not get to come at me and call me a liar and deceitful and this, and then we're not going to have a nice little rational chat after that, guys. I'm sorry. That's not a reasonable thing to expect. Remember that for next time. And the thing is, if I wasn't open to people coming back to me and talking to me about other stuff, I'd block them. Right? The compassion there is letting them shit on me for 12 tweets before they realize they were wrong, right?
Exactly.
But I am not going to reward bad behavior by having a nice little chat about He-Man after they've called me a liar.
Oh no, me neither. I would be like, why should I talk to you? Yeah, you might have learned your lesson. Why should I still talk to you?
Well, the point is, what's the lesson that was learned? Is the lesson
Exactly.
that was learned, I'm going to be more careful before calling somebody a liar because there are consequences to
Nope.
that kind of behavior? Or am I going to do the exact same thing again because I got her attention and then she talked to me?
Exactly, exactly. And it's like when I've seen other friends of mine that are girls who are getting, dumped on, and they're
Mhm.
either too busy or just don't say it. So I just come in, but give my 2 cents. What do I get called? Oh, why are you white knighting?
Oh,
I'm
I
not
hate that
white knighting.
term.
I'm
I
not
hate
white
that
knighting.
term.
I'm coming in to give my take on this. While you were talking to her, I'm coming in saying, well, hey, I have an opinion on this. But
Yeah, and that the worst I felt in this whole thing was two people when it was really hot, like what was it, like 2 days after it dropped.
mm-hmm,
This one guy, he's a lovely guy, I talk to him all the time, but he's got a Norse name.
mm-hmm,
So like I won't say it because I don't want to call him out,
no
but
problem, no problem.
he's got a Viking derivative name.
Mm-hmm.
And he got called a Nazi over
Oh,
this whole
brother.
thing, and I admit I hit the roof
Mm-hmm.
because that is not fair. That's singling somebody out for actually I don't remember if it was this or another scandal, but then somebody else got like pummeled for their disability. Now I'm think I'm confusing the things, but
It
like
could happen because
there's been
there's so overlap. There's
a
overlap.
lot of stuff going around, but it's when things like that happen that I start going, this is someone who got attacked totally unfairly because they were talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with them. It was their proximity to me. And that's when I go tank mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I'm like, no, you do not do this. You do not attack this person because,
Yep. Friend of
you
mine just
know,
left a good comment.
yeah. Like that's the ridiculous thing. There are certain terms that are not appropriate to throw at anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Incel is one of them.
Agreed.
I think that immediately when people start using, you should never use someone's sexuality or possible
Mm-hmm.
feelings for someone as an insult. Never, ever,
Exactly.
ever. Not because they have sex, not if they don't have sex, not if it's
Mm-hmm.
by choice, not if it's not by choice. Like people's
Exactly.
sexual activity has no bearing on their opinions. It's not okay.
Exactly.
Um, people's immutable characteristics, so their
Mm-hmm.
race, their gender, all that stuff, no place,
Yeah.
right?
No. Absolutely none.
Yeah,
So
and
being good friends with someone, their friendship or relationship, and I mean that in all regards, with a person should not be brought up. Like when they say you're white knighting, it's like, she's my
okay,
friend. Why wouldn't I be or
okay.
defensive?
There's an example though. Okay, you're watching somebody beat up on your friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're
you're gonna watch
just
it.
you're just supposed to not say anything.
Exactly. I don't get where these people get this idea from where you're supposed to just sit
It,
by and do nothing.
especially since they're swarming people, right? It's not one of
Mm-hmm.
them, it's six of them. And give me a break. Like these people that jump into my mentions as a totally, separate observer from this. I think you're the one being
You
aggressive.
are not a separate observer. You are
It's like, yeah, okay, you're going through and reading all my, because you know how Twitter's separated from the
Yep.
main tweets and then your
Yep.
responses, and people's
Mm-hmm.
responses don't just end up randomly on people's timeline. I'm supposed to believe that you were just reading all my mentions, of which there were dozens and dozens of dozens in
Mm-hmm.
the span of a couple hours because it's concentrated. You want me to believe that instead of you're this person's friend, they linked you to this and you're jumping in.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
No. I'm
Like,
or a Reddit, or if it was from a Reddit.
oh, of course it's from Reddit. It's like Reddit is where all this venom breeds,
Yeah.
right? But the point is, like, these are people liar, engaging in utterly dishonest tactics and name calling and bad behavior. And they keep trying to change the subject. They keep trying to claim they're not allowed to have opinions on the show.
Mm-hmm.
That
No.
is not That is not the issue. That is
No, it's
not
not.
the issue. That is not
Not
the
for you
issue.
don't. Yep, with me, I make that very clear. You're welcome to like it. It's the we're the real fans hate it. You're not a real fan. Where you guys are the ones throwing that at me that I'm taking issue with.
The thing that's really strange is all along I've said I understand why some people would not like this.
Oh yeah,
And
exactly.
people keep coming back to I need to be allowed to like it. It's like I don't care if you like it or not. Don't call me a liar. Don't
Yeah.
call Kevin Smith a liar. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I admit if he was just some dude that I didn't know anything about, I
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't have engaged as much. But when you know something about someone, when you have something to offer, you know, honesty, letting people have all the facts
Mm-hmm.
dictates that you should speak up. And I know that's a very
Exactly.
lawful, good D&D alignment. That's not the only right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that since Kevin Smith's character was being called into question, Kevin Smith's character
Mm-hmm.
should inform the opinions people have of him. And come on, this was a guy who scanned Batman versus Superman, saw it 3 times, and defended
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but then these
It,
people also remember him as the guy who saw the trailer for Last Jedi and cried his eyes out. And oh no, but they bring that up because in hindsight, they
but
bring
the
that up.
trailer,
Oh,
why?
that trailer was great. That's the funny thing about the I will give the sequel trilogy. Great trailers. Great trailers.
Okay, here's the thing though. This is a guy who cried during the Last Jedi trailer. Okay, that's your baseline. You actually think thousands of people accusing him of lying, the guy isn't going to completely lose his shit?
Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be some reasonable expectations here, people.
That's what I would have been telling these people. I was like, guys, yeah, he's acting this way because I've sometimes tossed the word man child. I say that more in a because like you said, an 8-year-old and a 50-year-old guy's body.
And I say that as a compliment, by the way.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's
Oh,
part of
yeah.
the reason that stuff he does that's good is really good.
Oh, and I say it more like in a ironic way when I say
Right.
it. I'm not saying it as an insult. I'm saying like, look at how he's acted. So I use it in that way. Look at how he's acted. Are you really that surprised, people?
But here's the other thing there, right? Like if people are if you as the speaker, you sort of the royal you, the collective you,
Yep.
expect these people who worked hard on this stuff. Nobody goes in and
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
I'm going to make this suck, right?
No one ever does. Not in comics, not in anything.
Right. If you expect them to be able to just, if you expect any human being to be able to take these hits, to be able to take these punches and not go, ow, or not even go, ow, fuck off, asshole.
Mangold again. James Mangold again. That's why
You
I
know-
defended him. He might have gone overboard a little, but
Right.
I don't blame him for getting involved.
I think it's the same thing here, that if people think it's so easy to just take that punch and say nothing, I'd like to see them do it, right? I'd like to
Exactly.
see them be able to have a discussion. Now, does that mean people shouldn't learn from past mistakes? Of course, you hope that somebody learns. There is a difference between an honest human mistake that we don't have to necessarily endorse, but we do understand as human beings who can empathize with other human beings, and truly egregious behavior that, let's face it, also I do think the way I do think the way someone like a Rian Johnson or like a
Paul Feig.
Blanking on his damn name. Oh, Paul Feig in Ghostbusters, yeah. And
right, we didn't bring that up during this.
I've memory hold it.
Yep.
I memory hold it.
You want to know the one sequence I like in that movie? When
I don't know, I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I didn't see it.
I'll just say there's a point where Holtzman, Kate McKinnon character, takes out these weapons, and you get this great instrumental version of the Ghostbusters scene.
Okay.
And she kicks ass.
Okay. I didn't see it.
You can find it on YouTube. That's the only good scene I recommend watching.
I knew I wasn't going to like it. I swore after the Green Lantern movie that if I really knew I wasn't going to like something, I wasn't going to see it because I was such an asshole after that movie. I just... When I am dragged,
a few people that like that movie.
My husband liked it too.
Okay, good to hear.
And I was a real asshole about it. I was a real asshole about the first Star Trek reboot, the one with Zachary Quinto
Uh,
with Spock. I was a real asshole about Sucker Punch, though I stand by that one.
oh, Sucker
I
Punch, I agree with completely. When you have all these Snyder cultists, that's what I'm just saying that
yeah, I
intentionally.
but
They seem to forget that movie, or they praise it to high heaven.
but these are examples of I fully am aware I was a complete asshole after those
Mm-hmm.
movies. I was an asshole about X2. I didn't like that movie. I didn't like that you
Mm,
get one mute character, but when Mystique and Lady Deathstrike are
I
both mute
agree.
in the same film, fuck off. I don't care how good
Doesn't
he's
matter.
acting it.
It doesn't matter how good they kick ass. They're still mute.
They're mute. And that made me mad, and I couldn't be objective about the movie. I was an asshole,
Yeah, at
right?
least Mystique got one line in the first movie, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah. But I
It was
mean,
a great one.
I am aware that yeah, I was an asshole about those. Does that make me wrong? No, but that's why yeah, even assholes can be right sometimes. Like
Exactly.
in my YouTube videos, when people are like, "Oh, a couple of good points, but otherwise total disaster," it's like, well, it was a couple of good points.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win, right? I mean, I try very hard not to outright dismiss based on identity of the speaker. That
Mm-hmm.
being said, I do attempt to be less of an asshole about things going forward. What I realized I was doing, however, is I was overcompensating and I was
Mm-hmm.
coddling people.
Yep.
And so that's one of those things that's like, no, that's not good to do to people either. You're not having a respectful conversation with people by treating them like children.
Exactly. You never do that. Yeah, and there's a reason why there's that phrase "tough love." Now, obviously, depending on how far you go with it, obviously, but there's a reason that term exists. There's sometimes you have to be tougher with people to get them to realize, you know,
And
to get.
unfortunately, I think this is where the being used thing comes in as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
The a lot of people have spent their lives being talked down to. They have never
Yep.
been treated like equals. This
Mm-hmm.
is where I go back to the special needs angle
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like it is totally understandable that people have life experiences where they were treated unkindly and they were I'm trying to think of they were condescended to. And so when you
Oh
show
yeah.
them sincere
Uh,
kindness, they think you're condescending.
That's part of the reason why I feel so bad when I see these people that I started feeling as friends. Now, I didn't fully join the group. I
Mm-hmm.
still kept my distance, but still, seeing this stuff with this He-Man stuff really has hurt more than usual because it feels like you're supposed to be the good guys. Why are you guys now becoming such total assholes? You were never this bad. They were never.
Okay, but this is the 80s trope, right? Here, I have a way out of it, okay, that we can all be friends again, right? This is which Joss Whedon stole with Hawkeye, the point where the good guy turns evil because of some sort of influence or mind. No, hear me out, here.
I know
Okay,
where you're going. I know where you're going with this.
as long as we break the spell or take out final boss, character
Hugs,
who turn
hugs.
evil can come back and we can all be friends again, right? And this friendship is stronger than ever because I do see a lot of signs that people were there was a long con here and people were
Mm-hmm.
really manipulated
Oh,
and
a whole year of working on, of whittling them down.
yeah. Yeah. And people formed friendships in these
Mm-hmm.
subreddits
Yep.
and they have a social group through these subreddits. They get a sense of belonging.
Oh,
And
yep. Exactly.
I totally understand why people are not so willing to admit that not as advertised,
Right.
right? It's difficult. That doesn't mean I just like I said with Kevin Smith, I am not
Mhm.
endorsing the behavior.
Exactly.
I understand the behavior.
That's exactly how I am too.
Yeah.
I try my hardest not to endorse it. I say I do understand where you're coming from, but here's still worth my opinion.
In some
And,
cases, I admit I don't understand where people are coming from, and I tell them that
oh,
if they're
I
if,
try to is what I mean. I
if
try.
they, but I mean, some of this stuff like Skeletors and Incel, I was like, what? No,
All
I
because of that one sequence.
crash.
Are you
I
guys looking at him? Would you but can you blame him? Especially if we go by the notion, the Keldor tie-up, he used to have a handsome face, a very handsome blue-skin mug.
Didn't he have like a goatee?
Some versions,
Yeah,
some
some
versions.
versions he had a goatee.
The
Yeah.
cartoon, but the comics completely clean shaven.
That's right. It was the cartoon. It was the Man at Arms mustache again.
Exactly. But you have stuff like that. It's like if we go by that. Now if we go by the notion he's from another dimension and that he was always a skeleton, maybe you might have something more okay.
We haven't spent nearly enough time dissecting Hordak's bat face, but that's
don't even I want to get before we wrap up because we're winding down, obviously.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just that you want to know one thing that's always guaranteed to piss me off about the She-Ra cartoon that I could never stand because I watched Secret of the Sword so much? Horde Prime. The fact that you have Hordak, this guy, he's an awesome villain. They set up that he's this great villain, and he's subservient and pathetically subservient to this mysterious smoke with this metal hand or whatever. You're like,
I think that was a side effect of them separating the universes, that He-Man did not exist in that She-Ra cartoon. So Hordak being the one that kind of kidnapped her, and it wasn't an appendix.
But yeah, they said they set him up great, and then you gave him a big boss that, at least in the comics, it's his dad and he's dead.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, this is the sort of thing where we talk about what now, right? With all this fighting. I mean, some people have behaved so badly that no, they got blocked. They got blocked for a reason. I'm not unblocking them. But with other people, there has to be like a reasonable middle ground here of everybody can understand getting hot. Everybody can understand being manipulated. Everybody can understand people getting whipped up and overreacting. I've told my own stories about when I was an asshole about something. That doesn't mean everything's ruined. And I think part of the reason that people are hanging on to something that doesn't make any sense anymore is they're afraid of having to admit they made a mistake.
Definitely. I always get that vibe, especially, again, with this topic, but more this past year in general, I am seeing that.
But okay, that doesn't come from nowhere, right?
Exactly. It doesn't come from nowhere at all.
If they have very bad experiences of really being ground into the dirt for being wrong, they're going to be really scared right now.
They don't want, you said this in a video once, and it really connected to me. They are avoiding hope because they don't want to get hurt. They do not want to get hurt, so they'd rather deny and refuse to listen or be like, nope, you are wrong because my cynicalness is because I don't want to get hurt. No, they don't. Nope, they're not realizing that. But deep down, they just don't want to get hurt, so they just rather just hold on to the cynicalism.
Yeah, and again, that's very human. I completely understand that. The reason we keep having these knockdown, drag out nerd fights is they really are a continuation of the same fight. It's interesting you brought up Comicsgate because I saw a lot of Fandom Menace stuff coming up.
And they've had him fighting there even.
Well, I stayed out of that.
Oh, I know. I'm saying that as a joke. I'm saying that's more of a joke.
Yeah, I get it. I try to have compassion for people in these situations because there is the handful of people who are legitimately bad actors, and then there are just a bunch of other people who got taken along for the ride and almost ended up on a side, so to speak, by default.
I almost did. It was just because of the fact that I just did not like their actions.
Yeah.
I never fully went in. I was
on
the border.
It's sort of like what various bad actors do is they say, this is the reaction you're going to get from these bad out group, right? Then they train the people they're trying to bring over to the dark side, for lack of a better term. They train them to respond to go after these people in a way that is guaranteed them to get a bad response. So it's like, you see what happened?
Oh God, that was the earliest days. Was when Comics Day started to go off the rails. Was the moment they started to tag creators in, claiming, no, I'm just being critical. Oh, we just want good books. But the moment they got enough screenshots of bad, acts from these creators, they started just posting those out saying, see how bad they are. What's the context? Doesn't matter. Look what they said. It's like,
And that is the reason I completely stayed out of it, because
mm,
unfortunately, some creators were actually so wrecked by
mm.
Comicsgate, they were actually
Oh yeah.
sniping at friends.
Yeah,
And
that's what I've heard. But again, you tell that to Comicsgate, they don't believe it. They think, and they refuse to believe it. And I've talked with some pros, and I still bring up some pros who are actually reasonable, but you try and tell anyone else that, they don't want to hear it. Then you try to tell them that Comicsgate can be reasonable, they don't want to hear it, but I feel for good reason.
it's Gamergate all over again, right? It
Hmm.
it just becomes about the blood feud. And
You know that better than I do. I was mostly out of that.
yeah, I Comicsgate was harder for me to follow, but I that is not a slight on anybody involved.
Hmm.
It's because I just found the whole comic scene getting increasingly not fun as movies and TV and video games kind of left that whole space in the dust.
Hmm.
The writing was increasingly pandering to a more narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow focus, and then all of a sudden they did the explosion of legacy characters. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like, for me, I'm like, I'm not coming back on these characters, guys. You pushed me out
Hmm.
by, first of all, recycling stories every 3 years. You're
Oh
punishing
yeah.
the people who are long-term readers, because I was getting to the point where I'm like, wait, I've read this,
Hmm.
but I haven't read this,
Yeah,
and
you basically like, this seems so familiar.
yeah, and I realized, oh yeah, it's because they did this on a run. And I mean, comics are increasingly a consolidation of big names. Um they're not cultivating new talent. They're
No,
getting the
DC
same talent.
DC's better than Marvel at it though. I will say DC's better at cultivating talent. Marvel, with their writers, yes, most of the time. With their artists, they're too cheap for them.
See, I agree with you with the DC like digital comics.
Oh
I've
yeah,
read some really, really good
Rob
Superman
Vendetti's
stories.
Superman. Rob Vendetti on Superman, which he's doing Superman 79. That's continuing the
Did,
Christopher
did,
Reeves thing.
did you read that story? It was Superman red and blue, and so the only colors they could use were
Oh
red
yep,
and
yep.
blue.
I have
Weren't
all the issues so far.
weren't those
Aside from
beautiful stories?
except for the John Ridley one where he was
Yeah.
abducted, and
Right. Okay.
that one
Yeah.
aside, oh, the recent one with Paul Kent. Did you read the
That's the
recent one?
one. That's the
Yes,
one. Isn't
with
that
Paul
good?
Kent and the crypto, but the Paul Kent one where it's like, I want him to be good. Just tell him he's special. Just tell him he's loved.
And then he's
And when he
yeah.
says that to the people, it's like,
Oh.
that's what I love about. That's what Snyder never got.
I agree.
Snyder never got it. What he did, the funny thing is, I defended what he did with John Kent initially because I didn't know where they were going to go. Now, 2 movies later, and I know where it's going.
Mhm.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate Mark Waid, and people were right. It was horrible what they did.
Superman and Lois is a much better everything in terms of the
Everything.
writing. But yeah, I mean, I can fundamentally disagree with a person's viewpoint and still see them as a human being.
Oh
I
yeah.
am asking for the same, and the only way we can do that is some basic ground rules. And the basic
Mm-hmm.
ground rule, and this is true, this is a good skill to develop in life.
Mm-hmm.
Minimize the accusations, express only what you can really prove,
Exactly.
because if you want a productive conversation, the worst thing you can possibly do is accidentally falsely accuse something.
Exactly.
That could be your sincerely held belief, but if it's
Yeah.
not
It's
true,
like
it's
with
not
me.
true.
It's like with me. When I would every time I came to the discussion,
Mhm.
I ignored the accusations for He-Man. I brought up myself with Rob David, how well he did the comics, him being the executive
Mhm.
producer, how I heard directly from Keith Giffen and Dan Abnett's mouth,
Mhm.
both ironic at the same convention, what happened, what was the transition, how Keith was given freedom, then he left because he didn't like what Rob was doing when he came on.
Oh, is
Then
that what happened? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep, and then Dan Abnett was, and he also didn't like being forced to do the DC Masters of the Universe crossover that was in canon with the books. He did not like doing
Interesting.
that either. But
Because that was when it was going to be a kid show, right?
no, I'm talking about just the regular DC comics like this.
Oh,
Like
you're
all
going
the,
way back. Okay, okay,
oh,
okay,
not that
okay.
far back, not that far back. This
No,
is
but I mean, we're talking before the Netflix development.
yeah, before
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Netflix
Okay, okay,
development.
okay.
I'm going off of that. And then Dan Abnett said Rob David started giving him the plots and he just scripted them. That's when I knew, and that's when it got good. That's when it started becoming epic. And you realize you saw the lore connections and he fixed Tila and Orko. That's when I knew then what we were in for. Now, I also wasn't dumb. I knew that compared to a comic, Rob's not going to have more cooks in the kitchen, which is what we got. I think that's what led to what we got.
Yeah, but I mean, look,
But
let me just give you a real simple example, right? I don't like if somebody said, I don't like the way they sidelined Adam, I think it went too far. That's a totally valid perspective because you're just saying, I don't like it. That opens the door to go, well, why didn't you like it?
exactly.
Right. But when
When
you
they say
start,
absolute, it sucks because it's like,
no, when you start going, Kevin Smith lied, and you
oh
stop
yeah.
bombarding people with screen caps of tweets, then you get into, well, I'm not getting the same thing as you are from this. This is how I'm
How can
interpreting.
you not
Lie,
see
lie,
it?
lie, lie, lie. And it's like we're having two completely different conversations here. You
Yeah.
know, I'm more than happy to talk to somebody. I mean, we did it in this podcast. You like something I did, and I like something you did.
Yeah.
We talked. We had
Exactly.
a really good time
Yeah.
because it wasn't, well, you're a bad person or you're
Oh yeah.
dishonest because
Oh
you like
Lord.
something I don't, and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, it's like with me, I loved Falcon and Winter Soldier. I just
Oh, I loved
loved,
all three of them. I loved all three of the
yeah.
series.
But people point out that the MacGuffin, like the thing with the, I don't even remember what the fuck it is now. Those syringes they were chasing
Oh
around,
yeah,
right?
the what the super soldier thing.
Whatever the fuck it was, because yes, it was a flimsy device, and apparently they had to change it because it was originally a virus, and then COVID hit, and they're
Yeah,
like,
I don't blame him.
nope. So,
I don't
and
believe him.
I totally
I
get
don't blame him.
that, and fair critique. That's one of those things, though, that it's unavoidable, and I never thought I'd like Winter Soldier. They really made me feel for him. Anthony Mackie was great in that big Captain America speech at the end, and people are like, that was so preachy. It's like, it's Captain America,
It's Captain America.
man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people like to bring up about the whole, oh, Captain America, we don't want balls in my comics. I say that, I point out, guys, stop saying it that broad. Just say, I don't want to shove down my throat, which is the problem.
Okay, except in some cases, like, that is a fundamental thing about Captain America. I will totally agree with you. I don't want, like, Wolverine or Juggernaut making speeches like that, right? I don't want Deadpool to suddenly start.
Unless it's a joke.
Unless it's a joke.
A joke. He parodies Cap's speech.
Yeah. Let's just let some characters be lawful good and be preachy like that so that other characters can be the best at what they do, and what they do ain't pretty, right? Let's just let the characters be the characters, and focus on the artistry and the craftsmanship instead of the politics, because the minute you start going, that's woke, like, sorry, you're invoking politics here.
Exactly, whether or not they know it or not. When people saying, I don't want politics, you're invoking politics whether you mean it.
Right. And I admit that there are some political reasons why there are certain criticisms I have of certain things that are sort of on the line between politics and craftsmanship. But
like MODOK Trump, that was beyond stupid. It's like, really?
I couldn't watch that show.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the comic. There was a comic.
Yeah, and like, I love MODOK, and I don't want MODOK to be political commentary.
Oh, me neither.
It's machine organism design only for killing. It's not like,
unless you go with the joke of MODOK, where it's divine for talking.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know where that's from. That's from a Howard the Duck comic.
Oh, you know what? I gotta go back and reread those. Those were so.
Oh, it was one that was right after Civil War, but because here's the joke: Howard is declared he no longer exists because the guy, the head of Shield of Ohio. Ohio.
Was this part of the Guardians of the Galaxy crossover? They did because this is something different. Okay,
this is something different. This was right after Civil War. Basically, during Civil War, he tried to register, but then it turns out then the guy who's the head of there had it out for Howard because it's like, you nearly killed me. So I already declared this because everyone kept saying, there's a duck. We just declared for the sake of simplicity, you no longer exist. and just tell people they're insane. And so he officially no longer exists. That bites him in the ass in the miniseries because he's now going to be hunted by these, get this, Nobel Peace Prize winning scientists who unfortunately have no friends, no one cares about their accolades because they don't have any duck trophies.
I'm gonna have to look this up. You've sold me.
I can just show you the cover. Let me show you the cover. It's gonna be a weird Howard though. He's gonna look really weird.
Oh yeah, I know the art. Wait, I have that book.
You do?
I do have that book.
Media Ducklings by Ty Templeton and Juan Bobillo.
Well, I know Ty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Ty's run. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was a mini series, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he was a huge Howard Chaykin fan. So that was so done with love.
Yeah. Well, no, not Howard Chaykin. It was Steve Gerber.
Yeah, but he's the influence is there.
Oh right.
Where
one moment though that so fits nowadays. Even though this was during Bush. You have the point where Bev's on the news and everything, and they're saying how Howard shot a guy, and she's like, "Wait a minute, Howard didn't shoot anyone. He didn't even have a gun. You all see it with your own eyes. They played a clip on it, but people like you keep saying Howard shot that man, and people are starting to believe what they hear, not with their own eyes." I'm like, this is more relevant today, and this was a satire, a joke.
See, that's why I think it's better if it's not so on the nose.
Yeah.
Like that's why I'm like, all right, let's listen to this thing about leaning too heavily into politics and comics. Because I mean, let's face it, that whole Green Arrow Hawkman thing with the red versus that was brutal. That got brutal for a while. They were too on the nose, right? But
again, Kevin made a great joke about it later. I just love that when Kevin wrote Green Arrow, and you have Black Canary think like, you just had the uber liberal and the uber conservative in the same room. They're going to be killing each other. They're going to be yucking it up.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, there's ways of doing it. But again, it's like, are you putting the art and story first, or are you putting proselytizing your political position first?
And that's a big difference.
And the trade-off with not wanting woke is don't shove woke into things where it doesn't fit. For example, if something can be explained by a creative team just wanting to make Skeletor really, really, really scary, that's what caused the thing you don't like, not wokeness. Because all I have had meetings with these companies, not high up, but I've been in the media for years. I've been on the video game side. I told you my Disney story, everything that. I've had meetings with Disney about pitches. They didn't take a show idea of mine because it was too close to Gravity Falls, which when Gravity Falls came out, I'm like, okay, this show's good. I'm fine with this.
Yeah, that is fine. That is perfectly fine.
It was a good show, but yes, it was very, very close to what I pitched, all the paranormal stuff. But they're not. Woke is not driving these decisions. No. Money is driving these decisions.
And unfortunately, some people do think that there's money in this audience that's there.
But it's not the way they think.
Exactly.
You are told as a creator, women good, feminism bad. You are flat out told that. Like, bring women forward, but you start bringing any sort of discernible feminist agenda to something. The problem is that what that means to a female creator, you're like, okay, don't do this, and this. Don't be a man hater, right? Male creators who try to write women, they tend to overdo it, trying to be good people instead of bringing in somebody who can actually say, like, no, you're not writing this character to appeal to women. You're writing this character to absolve you as a guy. Like, come on. And that's not a political thing. That's a real human overcompensation, trying to just be a good person.
Right. I mean, you want to know an example of something done in a different direction that I actually have in my hand right now, that it's not woke, nowhere near woke, but it's done to kind of counteract it, but you might like it. Common America.
What is that? No.
It's an independently made comic, one of the crowdfunded ones. Tim Lim used to be early day Comicsgate, left right away, started doing all this. Just look up Iconic Comics. But yeah, it is very anime-like and all that. And basically the whole bit of it though is, and also same guy who did Black Hops, which basically is this bunny who is this badass kicking,
Hold up,
you
let
know.
me see this. Oh, that's cute.
Yep.
That's cute. Black
Yep.
Hops.
Yep.
Aw.
Yep. If you go,
I'm googling this.
yep, just go
Okay.
to iconiccomics.com. You can order them if they're available. Fair warning, he also did this Walmite, which is a joke on My Hero. It's called My Hero Magadamia. It's only been 3. It's mostly to the side. They're focusing on
Oh,
these
so
two
it's a My
now.
Hero Academia spoof.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
okay, okay.
they've been mostly focusing on these lately now, trying to get away from the politics and focus more on. And they just finished one campaign. They are done getting ready for the next one, and they're already writing another one. They are just
See,
chugging it along.
I feel sorry for some of these creators who like they're not constantly online, right?
Well, they are online. They actually are online.
No, but you know what I mean? Like they're not constantly on social media and they get
Oh, yeah.
dragged into some of these controversies and you can't win, right? You say nothing, you're sitting the fence. You say, I'm not getting involved, you're sitting the fence. You take a side, somebody hates you. There's no winning. And it doesn't create better products because let's face it, these big conglomerates that own these comic book companies, comic book companies are a low margin business, right? They
There's
don't
a reason why they're not being shut down anytime soon, because they have so little money. You're not going to gain much by shutting them down.
Exactly. They're a low margin business, but they're fairly cheap as well. I think that if Warner Brothers and Disney had really had foresight, they'd be like, you can only lose this much money, but what we want you to focus on is creating the massive IP of 10 years from now.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, again, DC's better at that with certain characters, like Punchline. Look at how much that's taken off.
Yeah. DC, I admit DC has done a better job of...
What does Marvel give us? For the wrong reasons, save space and Snowflake.
I forgot about that. But I mean, like Doom Patrol, whoever thought that would be a show, and that show's amazing.
I thought it would be a troll because there's so many different variations.
I love it. I love that show. Oh my God.
Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
Well, superhero version.
And see, they went totally Grant Morrison with some nods to the 70s.
Yep. The superhero.
Yeah.
It's a bit closer to Keith Giffen, who was a blend of all of them. Yeah, he wasn't good with He-Man, but he was great with Doom Patrol.
And they're very different things, right? And I guess, I mean, it's easy to say, like, I don't want to sound too kumbaya, but we could
use a little kumbaya.
It's not so much that as it is like, look, treat people the way you want to be treated, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I am online.
Would you terribly want to talk to somebody who the start of the conversation is they call you a liar when you know you didn't?
Exactly. That's again why I think Kevin and James Mangold and all that stuff. Again, they've been hearing about this for so long. They're deciding to put on their big boy pants.
Well, I just know from my experience when people are like, you lied about Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, I admit my first reaction was, these people are insane. And then I went, no, wait, these people are on Reddit. And I had absolutely no, like, why would someone lie about things that can be checked? What is going on here? There are obviously greater factors at play. And then someone's like, you ended up on a Star Wars hate board. They warped it. It was out of context. Because, of course, I had another tweet that was a follow-up that they didn't post. And, that wasn't...
It's like another...
That was actually... I actually thought the follow-up tweet was a spicier take.
I thought the Carrie Fisher one, and I thought so too. But
that I thought was the one that, if anything was going to get me into trouble, that was further out on a limb, right? Because that was drawing on the fact that the press was horribly shitty to her.
People don't notice it. Again, it's the stuff.
People don't know that. Yeah,
that's the thing. And I'm going to wind it down to one last sentence before we wrap up. Context. People don't want to look, and the wrong people don't want to look for it. It gives everything. They don't want to look for it because it can make them look wrong.
And what's wrong with being wrong? Everybody's
Exactly.
wrong. I
Exactly. That's why I
mean,
went into He-Man. Because I'll be honest, I went in expecting to be proven wrong. I'll be honest. But when I saw it and I saw the context, I'm like, this makes sense.
I went in with very low expectations because I have given you a history of my
Mm,
previous asshole behavior.
exactly.
I'm so tired of all the formulaic superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Black Widow was so meh.
Yeah,
And
I enjoyed it, but again, to each
yeah.
their own.
See, I'm burned out, right? I'm
Oh,
burned out.
I don't blame you on that
The
one. This one should have come. I will say this.
the
This should come out long ago.
Sure, but also the thing with the pig happened in the movie, and I'm checked out now. I
I
don't
thought the
I
pig
don't
was funny.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I want Alexi the pig to come back as the spectacular Spider Ham, because now not only has Black Widow been done dirty, but Alexi the pig has been done dirty. And come on, man, Frog Thor and Alligator Loki are
Yeah.
now canon. We can do the
And
spectacular.
they own Futurama. You could add
Yeah,
in Hypnotoad.
but we can do the spectacular Spider Ham.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring in Beta Ray Bill. Like, come on.
Oh, Beta Ray, but I want. Is he supposed to be in Thor 4? I think.
I I am so not sure about
Oh,
Love and Thunder.
yeah, me neither. Because we know
Be-
the director can do it, but even that movie was divisive because.
I loved Ragnarok, but
Oh yeah.
I did not like the Jane Foster as Thor run. I thought that
Oh.
was an example of being
Mm.
extremely heavy-handed and kind of losing the plot. However,
And it had a plot initially, but then they stretched it too long.
but how and that was an example of they actually did say this is Thor. This is not a pre-existing character. This is Thor. They are Thor. It's not Lady Thor. It's Thor. And then it turned out to be Jane Foster.
Exactly. And it's like, and the funny thing is, this wasn't the first time. Earth X did that.
Magneto is Zorn.
Yeah, but I'm saying no,
You
Earth
know.
X was its own separate thing where Thor got
Yeah.
turned into a woman.
Yeah, but I mean, this was they flat out said
Yep,
they
it was
flat out
Thor.
said this was not a pre-existing character.
And then they later said, "Oh,
It's
Thor's
Jane
a title."
Foster.
Then they
Yeah.
made Thor a title, and
Then
it's
they
like
made
it's
Thor a
not.
title, which is actually not true.
Everyone knows
But
it's not true, but
that's his
those
name.
who, yeah, Thor Odin's son.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but
those
like
are the sorts of things. Taika Waititi, I trust him. He's made good movies. I loved his Mandalorian work as well as what he did on Thor. So if anybody can make it work, it's him. I'm going in not really crazy about the source material, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Marvel. I gotta throw one other thing before we go. Suicide Squad. You looking forward to that?
Oh, fuck yes.
Mm-hmm. I am too.
Oh my God. I am looking forward. See, I'm getting too hyped.
Yeah, I
Because
know.
this is the sweet spot, man.
But
It's
this
a
feels like
bunch of
James Gunn. He's given, even though he said he had more freedom in the MCU, he has more toys he wants to play with here at DC.
it is Z-list characters, and I
Arm
love
fall off, boy. Arm fall off, boy.
I love Polka Dot Man. Like
Mongal.
what? Yeah, like it but it's
Starro,
the Dirty
you're
Dozen.
actually Starro. You're
Fucking
actually
Starro, man. Like, oh my God. Yeah, like it looks like it's gonna be amazing, and it's a war film, and it's a bunch of Z-list characters. So you know the body count is just gonna be off the chart, right?
How
It's
many of them are
actually
going to
be
live by the end? We know Harley is. Only Harley's the only guarantee.
maybe 4. Maybe.
Yeah. No,
And yeah. I'm not sure which ones they are. King Shark may make it out.
Oh, good. With Stallone, Slide. Nom nom. Oh, what about and we already know Peacemaker. Peacemaker is a shoe-in.
Okay, yeah,
So
maybe.
That's three. No, that's 3.
Maybe, but yeah, anybody else, jump ball, man. Like maybe Idris Elba's character.
Yep. Oh, maybe him.
I forget who he plays.
What's his name? Who was also in the first one? What's his name? Rick Flair.
Rick Flag.
Rick Flag. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, not Flair.
I knew what you meant. I've made that mistake too because the wrestler. Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? It was great having you on. I think it's time we wrap up. I would love to talk with you again. It was so much fun.
Maybe after I don't know, something comes out. Like who knows? We'll see. I gotta finish up episode about 5 of Boss Fight. That's my big priority now. But yeah, maybe we check back in when the back half of He-Man is out.
Exactly. Whenever that's gonna be, either Who knows? Do you think they're
Yeah.
going to extend it, or do you think they're going to rush it out? Do you think, given the
Oh
reaction?
no, they'll wait. They'll
Yeah.
wait. They'll wait until it's they have their production schedule. They
Hmm.
have their internal production schedule. Just because they don't tell us doesn't mean they don't have deadlines, right?
Right. Well, well, guys, this is Robert and Liana. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll see you later.
Hi.